and secondary school principal, as well as chief academic officer in Federal Way Public Schools, and adjunct faculty for both WSU and UW. Dr. Crawford most recently served as Senior Director of High School Academics and CTE for the Portland Public Schools. Dr. Crawford earned his undergraduate degree from Washington State University, his master's degree from the University of Washington, and his doctorate of education from Washington State University, where his dissertation was named Dissertation of the Year by the Washington Educational Research Association. And I know I'm embarrassing Dr. Crawford, so just allow me to finish. Dr. Crawford has also earned the Distinguished Award of National Emerging Leaders in Education from the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. So please join me in helping welcome Dr. Crawford, our new Bremerton School Superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, council members, Council President Coughlin. They said I could say a few words, and I thought this is dangerous. But I'm very honored, and I'm very proud to serve as the superintendent of the Bremerton School District. And I apologize if I get choked up about this. Who knew that a young boy who grew up in generational poverty, the first in his immediate family to graduate high school, and one of the very first high school students to serve as a student rep to the school board in 1997 would come home one day and serve as the superintendent of the Bremerton School District. I am deeply indebted to this community for everything. I'm proud. The community deserves the very best, and I have spent the last 25 years making sure that anything that my name is attached to is the very best. It was important for me to come home, to be invested in the community, to ensure that our kids see themselves in me, in the leadership position that I'm in. There are many kids that are walking our hallways at Bremerton High School, trying to figure out who they are. And I was one of them 25 years ago. And I never had the bravery that they do today to stand up and say that I'm gay. And so during the interview process, when they asked me questions like, will you take care of our transgender children? It just touched my heart. It touched my soul. And our future is very bright because of them. And I'm excited about that. I am, again, forever grateful for the community. I'm grateful for the teachers and the staff for giving me a chance at life. I'm not going into too much detail, but that didn't happen for my brother and my sister, unfortunately. And so I've spent my entry plan asking questions about how we ensure that that doesn't take place for other kids in our community, and how what happened to me doesn't become an anomaly or an exception to the rule. We have a moral obligation to ensure that every single one of our children receives the highest quality education. We have a moral obligation to ensure that when they leave Bremerton, that they not only go out and take on the world, but they too can come back and serve their community just like I am. That's really important to me. My transition activities have included student focus groups. They've included various events. They've included going on a police ride along for 4 hours, which was really enlightening to me. I encourage anybody to do that. We are better when we are one community standing together. Divergent thinking is really good. It helps us become better people, more well-rounded people. That's what we're doing in our classrooms today, is getting kids to critically think and examine their world and their community, so that when they leave, they realize that we're all just trying to do it together. We're trying to make things happen together. And we can't do that if what we're doing is fighting and bickering at each other all day long. But we have to train the mind to think, to think differently. to examine our own assumptions about what we've experienced in life, to step into an uncomfortable place and know that we're learning along the way. That's what we're teaching children. And when they leave with a diploma in Bremerton School District, I want people to say, that's what we're teaching our kids. Bremerton School District is the best school district in the state of Washington. Absolutely, bar none. And I will fight to make sure that people know that. We also have an opportunity ahead. I invite you to our third and our final community forum regarding the recommendations from a long-range facilities master planning process that was completed this spring. And I tell you this, like you invested me, now is the time for our community to determine the future of the generations ahead. And we have an opportunity in front of us. Community input is essential to the school board and the city of Bremerton to make decisions in how we invest in the future on our school facilities. Your input is very important to that process. It's the last forum that we have Saturday from 10 to 11:30 at the district office or on Zoom. I encourage all people to watch, to give us input on what our schools might look like for the next 10 years. If we were to dream of the future for our kids in the next 10 years, what would that look like? If I were to ask you, what do you hope or expect of our kids in 10 years? What's one word that you would say, that you would use, or of one another for that matter? I asked the school board that during my interview. Carolyn Perkins spoke for the school board and she said pride. That was the one word. So I ask you to take that to heart. Let's join together as one community and let's do this for our kids. Thank you. I'm very honored and I'm excited about our work ahead. So I appreciate you and I appreciate you, Mary Wheeler. Thank you.
All right, that concludes my report.
Gosh, thank you, Mayor, for your report, and thank you, Dr. Crawford, for coming and a really inspiring speech. Can we take a moment and get a picture of Mayor and Council and Dr. Crawford and just all of us standing up here on the moment? I need a moment from that one. Whew. All right, thank you again. And moving along, we'll go to Clerk Hoover for the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Coughlin. For approval on the consent agenda are the following items. A, claims and check register. One, check number is 403-626 through 403-798, and EFT numbers V37916 through V38000, and the grand total amount of $3,932,796.07. Two, regular payroll for pay period ending April 15th, 2023, in the amount of $1,012,794.87. Three, regular payroll for pay period ending July 15th, 2023, in the amount of $1,072,085.60. B, minutes of meeting July 19th, 2023. C, minutes of study session July 26th, 2023. D, confirm appointment of Susie Beal to the Bremerton Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. And E, confirm appointment of Melissa Watkinson to the CDBG Project Review Committee. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any one of these specific items? Just make sure there's no hands raised online. All right, seeing none, we'll go to the council for a motion. Yes, Vice President Chamberlain,
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
is there a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I call for the question.
Councilmember Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is public recognition.
Thank you. As noted, public recognition provides an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any city-related item that is not already listed on tonight's agenda. Also, now that it's election season, please refrain from any comments on political campaigns or ballot measures. If you wish to speak, please line up at the podium, or if participating by Zoom, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. We just ask that you state your name for use in the record if you live or work in Bremerton, and you ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I have a timer system. I always like to say it's nothing personal, but at exactly 3 minutes, I'll cut you off and I'll try and give a 15-second warning. All right. Yes, we'll start in the room. Please go ahead.
Mary Lou Long, longtime resident of Bremerton. Once again, I'm here to show that we really appreciate our nation by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, trying to encourage our council to do the same as I do at the opening of every meeting. With that, if anyone would like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, you're invited to do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Second item on my little list, camping on city property is not allowed by virtue of our Bremerton Municipal Code. I say keep it on the books. When it was added to keep our streets clean and safe, it was a good thing, a good idea then, and it is a good idea today. It has served our citizens well over many years. If people want to camp, go to a campground or the woods. Why should tax-paying citizens be placed in a dystopian hell by allowing this kind of behavior in our city? It makes no sense. Property values drop with this behavior. Safety for our children and our families is in danger. Our personal property is being stolen and our personal peace is taken away. The sick need help, but allowing them to continue these destructive behaviors is uncivilized, possibly immoral. Affordable housing is a totally different subject matter. Conflating the two is illogical. One can support the construction of housing by building codes and regulations to bring new housing available in the city, but this does nothing to get people off the streets if they are not interested in any housing. They do not want affordable housing unless it's free. Will Mayor Wheeler build an affordable cottage in his backyard or an apartment in his basement to house a vagrant at no cost to the occupant? I think not. If he would not, then I think most people would not agree with this as a solution to street tents. The only resolution or the only reasonable use of these options is for family members to use them temporarily for elderly parents and children as they're still getting started in life. What is the root of the situation? Catering to irresponsible and sick individuals that have fallen into a life of drugs and crime does nothing to correct the situation. Drug treatment and mental health reconstruction are needed more than a house. To get them into a mental institution cannot be voluntary because these people are sick and incapable of making a decision that is being controlled by an addiction. Maybe a mental hospital is the only way to even have a chance at saving a life that is so tortured by drug addiction. Unfortunately, President Obama tied treatment as a secondary position to
And that's
people.
3 minutes. Thank you very much for your comments.
Pardon me?
And that's 3 minutes. Thank you very much for your comments.
My light didn't change.
I have a timer system right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, anybody else for public recognition?
Jane Rebolowski, longtime resident here. I disagree with Ms. Long. I actually hope that until we have shelter space available, which we do not have now, that we should just repeal the ordinance for camping, which has been found unconstitutional. Once we have shelter space, then yes, we can guide people into shelters or tell them that they can't camp on public streets. I think a lot of people have the misconception that everybody living out on the streets are suffering from drug addiction. There's a lot of people with mental illness problems. And some of them started using drugs because they had no hope living in a tent on the street. So I would hope that until we get real shelter space and portable public toilets downtown, that we just repeal the ordinance that is on the books right now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Joe Walter, West Bremerton. I got the thought that to continue to say the same thing, to use the same strategies and expect something different was not useful. So today I've brought a visual aid. I think everyone has read the letter where you were reminded that there are people on MLK Way who are collecting human waste in a container like this one and disposing of it. There is also a letter that I think the mayor CC'd you on, and it was in response to some of us who are doing some of the grassroots work to try to, at minimum, get sanitary facilities available for people on that street. My concern right now is that we are about to amend the ordinance because we need to have a way that we can move those people from this place where we don't want them to be. We don't have a legal way to do it right now. So amending the ordinance, according to the mayor, he feels as though we may be not able to let them stay there because of their proximity to the Marvin Williams Center. I cannot believe that the Marvin Williams Center, though I understand the concern for everyone, the children, the people who use the center, and the people who are living unhoused on the street. I believe that the Marvin Williams Center folks are concerned for everyone. But I also believe that they would be thinking in terms of what would Jesus do? And Jesus would not be using the little children in order to be the excuse for pushing away the most vulnerable people in our community. I have asked that we prioritize this over the ordinance because we've been working on this for 8 months and we have the funding for it. The answer continues to be that we have a liability issue. I think we need to work through that problem and find an answer, and that we do not relocate anyone or push anyone away until a permitted campground area has been discovered. I appreciate your work to try and go in that direction, but please let's not move people out of there according to a new amended ordinance until we have the campground available. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Don Michelle Wilson. Hello, everybody. Some of you may have seen the article. It came out in the Kids Up Sun yesterday, Rock the Block. 6 organizations, New Day, New Life, Gather Together, Grow Together, Their Voice, God's Broken Home University, and Socksbox have come together to try to do something, anything. I would often get angry at agencies. Other people get angry at agencies, but having worked for the state and the county, I understand policy and procedure. I understand liability and insurance and the red tape that comes with it. The good news is that we don't have those things. as nonprofits, so we can get down there and we can help them. But I'm going to give you an example. On Monday, while we were rocking the block, because that's our goal, we're going to rock the block, and we're just going to take the street back one person at a time. We're going to get them housed. When somebody says to me, Don Michelle, I want to go to detox, I'm done. I'm like, get in my car, get in the car. I'll take you right now, because I don't have that red tape. I can transport people. I had a gentleman for 10 years. I've been trying to breathe life and hope into him. Come on, let's go. Let's get off these streets. You're too old to be out here. On Monday, he saw me, hasn't seen me in a long time, took one look at me, burst into tears and said, I'm done. I'm ready. Get me out of here. Right? All right. I called the agencies that we have to walk through to get him to the places he needs to go, to into Kids Up Rescue Mission. You know, I can't just drive him up there and drop him off. It doesn't work like that. They have been down there, and of course I'm following through every day. He's still down there right now. I just left him. He's in tears and he's losing hope. He has been packed up and ready to go since Monday afternoon at 2. I'm about ready to go get him and put him in a tent in my backyard. That window of opportunity that we can help people is limited. And because of the red tape policy and procedure, I can't call those agencies and say, hey, what's going on? Because of HIPAA, they can't talk to me about it. The other thing that I want to address is a porta potty. Again, I understand liability, insurance, policy, procedure, but we're finding a way. We reached out to the Salvation Army, said, hey, can we try a test in one of your parking stalls for 2 weeks and see how it goes? They're on board for that. Can we, we're all racking each other's brains. Can we get together and maybe the $10,000, because we all know the problems that come with a porta potty, right? We know, we've tried it before. So can we address the city council and ask them if we could take that $10,000? If Jim Adrian is willing to pay for a porta potty, can we take the $10,000 and pay for security so that we don't have issues? We're just trying to do something, anything. And all I would ask is that we have your guys' support. That's all we really need. We need the support of the community to do what we can do, which is grassroots on the ground level. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Keep going here in the room.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. I'm from East Bremerton or West Bremerton, depending upon where I'm at. I think, as we're talking about the different camping ordinances, I think we're looking at two different things. What's happening down on MLK is not camping, and it's surviving, and that's all they're trying to do. And when you're a human, there are certain things that you just have to do. I mean, the bare minimum of anything, and that's eating, that's using the restroom, right? And that's having liquids. And that's really, I mean, if we want to go to, we can do security as well. But I think that we're taking away, we cannot continue to we're comparing apples and oranges right now. We're comparing somebody's aesthetic beauty, their property rights, to someone just trying to survive. And that's what's happening down there. We've been on the Bremerton Prayer Walk. We've been doing this for 3 years. And one of the things that we've started to see now is that with the more individuals, Don Michelle was just talking about how we're going down there, and we have a presence down there every day now between these different organizations. And between these different organizations, we're still in there breathing life, and we're breathing hope into these individuals who on some occasions don't have anyone else. It would be great if we had family members that could take care of individuals going through treatment, but the fact of the matter is they have no one, and that's why they find themselves down there on the streets. And so as a community, as Bremerton, I think one of the things that makes this community, and I've lived in a lot of communities, and I never want to go anywhere else, because one of the things that makes Bremerton so incredible, it's that the community that rallies behind everyone and gives other individuals hope. At least don't hinder what I'm trying this commission not to do, right? This council, don't hinder what is trying to, because we as the grassroots, we get it. We don't have the red tape. We don't have to answer to anyone except for God. And we can go down there and we can use different methods in order to reach individuals who maybe have not been reached by anyone else yet, who hasn't been shown this over aggressive love that we're able to do, that a lot of agencies are not able to do because their hands are tied. And so I would really encourage this council, as Don Michelle was saying, let us get some security down there for the porta potty, because as we're seeing once we start treating individuals better, once we start showing them the hope that all of us have, they start getting it. And I call it the slippery slope of hope, because once they grasp it, other individuals will grasp it. And pretty soon we won't be able to stop the hope down there. It will just keep going and going and going, and we won't know what to do with all the goodness coming out of the streets. So it's pretty awesome. And I would just
Fantastic.
encourage you guys, you can't make an ordinance constitutional by amending it. All of the different places that you guys are looking at, all of the different cities and councils and stuff,
No,
they're still
that's
going
3
to court
minutes.
for them. So
Thank you.
thank
so
you.
much for your comments. Yeah. Do one more in person here and then we'll go online. Yes, please go ahead.
Mayor Wheeler, City Council. My name is Jay Langebeer. I'm a 7-year veteran here. I live down on MLK. If any of you need to have any questions answered, you come to me directly anytime. I know the women that have been speaking here prior. How many of you drove up to MLK on your way to work today? All right, that way to the meeting. At least 1 or 2 of you do. I think. Anyway, it's homelessness is not new. Salvation Army was founded in 1742 in England. This is not a new issue, and we've covered this in the council meetings before, right? I mean, it's not. But I'm not going to kid you. We have 37 tents today. I counted them. That's a lot. Are there drugs? Yeah, there is. Is it the sole issue down there? No, I don't use them. I'm not a perfect citizen, but I have made some great strides with the public works care of Mayor Wheeler. I have. I get garbage picked up weekly now. More if I need it. I go right through Hillary Hamilton, and they will come out the same day if I need it. They have a nickname for me. They call me the mayor down there. I don't approve of, nor do I condone any type of theft or open drug use. That's why the tents are good. Okay, keeps them out of sight. But it's 37 is a lot. It's going over to South Court. It's going into the streets. And I'm frustrated by it. I can usually motivate them pretty well, but I've got over 50 people down there. Porta potties won't work. We've done it before. The reason is they have a 4-inch collection tube. The rigs that they use, syringes, if you will, are 5.5 inches long. They get clogged in the tube, and they will charge you up the yin yang because they can't. They just got to manually clear it, and it won't work. That's the standard of the industry. They won't. There's no other size tube that they use. You can try it. Security is not a very good thing. I mean, I'm a citizen, and I have the same rights as everybody else, and I don't want them watching when I go to the bathroom and when I come and go. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. Just you have bathroom here, by the way. Maybe we can send them up here. No. I've made great strides in influencing the people, how I believe it's. I believe them to be accountable for what they are and treat it like it's their own backyard. And that's how I got them involved in cleaning up the messes that they have down there. Really, it's clean down there. If you look at years past, right? You're given the people that we have down there, over 50 people in one little stretch there. That's more than they have in South Court renting apartments there now. Anyway, I wanted to make myself available to any of you or the Mayor Wheeler. I'm on Facebook as Jay Beer. Or I can come by your office if you have any questions. And if you have any thrusts of things that you want to accomplish, whether it be rock the block or you just want a heads up on what's going on down there, you can call me directly or get a hold of them. Anyway, thank you for your time. Sirs.
Thank you for your comments. All right, let's go online to Jim Klein next.
Hi, good evening, Council. This is Jim Klein. I'm the Vice President of the wonderful Charleston Business Association. You can see tonight, once again, when people attend the council meetings and they participate and they have things that they believe in, great things can happen. It's just another wonderful thing to welcome Dr. James Crawford. That sounds like a renewal of the wonderful Bremerton School District that I went to and graduated from. We look forward to more great things in our partnership between the Charleston Business Association and the schools. With that, I know that there's lots of challenges in Bremerton, but let's balance that out and let's talk about some of the great things. Right now, everything's coming up roses down on Callow, and not just roses, but other flowers. We're just so fortunate that our councilperson, Michael Goodnow, and Council President Jeff Coughlin has been absolute supporters along with the rest of the council, Denise Frey, and I've learned a lot from Anna Mockler on the new planters that we have had repurposed from the Minette project over to Callow. And it just shows that with the help of Public Works and the Parks Department and Mayor Wheeler and all of you, that we can beautify Bremerton. That's just a part of making Bremerton a great place to live, but it's a positive part. And again, it shows, just like all of the people who are concerned about the homeless population, that when you have a vision and you have people who participate, you can make the change. The merchants down in Callow, and there's so much happening. We've got First Friday coming up, but the merchants like Miranda Pernero at Cafe Corvo, and of course, Flea Masters at the Unique Experience, and the planners are all going to be taken ownership of by the merchants. Just want to tell you that you're going to see more great things in Callow. We appreciate your help and look forward to furthering that relationship. And Michael, I don't know how you did it. We were supposed to have those delivered on Friday, but they were already delivered. So spectacular job. I owe you a cup of coffee at Cafe Corvo. So council, thank you for all you've done. To all the members out there that are in attendance in person, you can make a difference. Don't give up. Keep fighting for what you believe in, and we're going to make Bremerton not just a great town, but the best town in the United States. Love you all, and thank you and good night.
Thank you for your comments. All right, let's go next online again to Molly Brooks. If you can hear us, Ms. Brooks, please go ahead. You can hear us, we can't hear you yet. We'll give it another few seconds and we can always circle back. It's not working. All right, tell you what, why don't we go on to, looks like Joy H. We'll come back to Molly. Yeah, let's go to, unless you can hear us, Ms. Brooks. Nope, still nothing. Okay, yeah, let's go to Joy there.
Hello, my name is Joey Hayes. I'm a member of Kitsap E-Race. I've been paying very close attention to this discussion, including coming to the study sessions. I think I now also know quite a lot about the Warren Avenue Bridge from going to the last two study sessions. I have been heartened to hear the amount of concern coming from the council about making sure that we have someplace people can go. If I had my way, there would be no anti-camping ordinance, but I'm so happy to have heard that most of the conversation about this ordinance has actually gone to where we can safely put people while we're working to find them housing. And I really think that we can really do some good there. And then, of course, I think we all know shelters don't solve homelessness. So we need to be able to build up our whole infrastructure with more case management, more affordable housing units. And there are people in Bremerton doing this work and willing to do it. We just need more funding and probably also more people helping along with us. And I really hope that this conversation about where to safely house people when they're in transition, be it a sanctioned encampment or another emergency shelter, I think that's really a step in the right direction. But we can't stop at just that. We have to follow through into supporting people moving into and staying in safe housing that is acceptable, more than acceptable, safe, comfortable for human habitation. We may all have different opinions, but I would like to think that nobody wants to see anybody having to live in a tent. And I hope that as a community, and I love this community, that we can come together to create some great long-term solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's go on to Marlon Cameron.
Good evening, council, mayor, and everyone in attendance. I appreciate the time. My name is Marwan Cameron. Gather together, grow together. You've heard from many of my teammates this evening speak on behalf of the unhoused downtown and on ML King and how important that is. I want to acknowledge Councilman Younger and his words and his advocacy and his humanistic viewpoint in that dialogue last week at the study session. That was very much appreciated. For the gentleman, just kind of reacting to the other two gentlemen that spoke, you know, there are bathrooms there that every one of you can go and walk into right now and use. And everyone should have a restroom. And just because something is expensive or not cost effective doesn't mean that we should not do it. If we want Bremerton to be the best city in the world, in the country, then that means that we are taking care of those that need it the most. We can see how much that is grown exponentially down on ML King, and it's not just ML King, but this is the focus this evening. But if you look at Philly, if you look at Cali, if you look at New York and other cities, that's the direction that we're headed. And so we have to have the desire, the political will, we the people, to do something different. This is City Council. This is the mayor. We need to create the solution. And I'm impressing upon you to please create the solution. So many of us are ready and already doing the work to pitch in and make it successful. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, let's go to Justin Gurley, and then we'll try and circle back to Molly Brooks.
Hi, my name is Justin Gurley. I live in Manette. I would like to urge the council to remove and get rid of the camping ordinance. It is unconstitutional. It should just be out of the books tonight. It should be done with. There shouldn't be studies. It's unconstitutional. We should not criminalize homelessness. We need to have solutions and compassion towards these people. And there are ways that we don't have to look towards other cities, because we as a city can come up with these solutions. And to do it quickly, we can look at already hotels and everything that are just sitting empty rooms and get those filled and find out the capacity of homes that are just empty, that are sitting there as Airbnbs, and looking at that and getting rid of that type of housing solutions for profit before taking care of our homeless. And that's really what it comes down to, is that we would rather keep these units open to make profit for other people by extracting and leaving our city. And I feel that we should really look at the inventory of that, along with all the other solutions that everybody else has said. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's try going back to Molly Brooks. Okay, Ms. Brooks, if you can hear us, just hold on one second. There we go, Ms. Brooks. You should be able to speak now.
Hi, my name is Molly Brooks. I'm a member of Kitsap Race Coalition's Housing and Homelessness team. I would like to thank all of you for the time you've been taking to discuss the issue of the homeless encampment on MLK Way. Please create a place for unhoused neighbors to move either a dedicated camping location or a tiny house village or something of the sort, a place where they can keep their belongings and not have to move them, where they will have sanitary facilities. Please also take their transportation to services into consideration once they have been moved. I also urge you to do everything you can to increase shelter beds in our community so that we can get people off the streets. Everyone deserves a safe place to sleep and to keep their belongings and access to sanitary facilities. And after that, please, we want to move people out of shelters after that, find, further housing solutions so that we can work people into more permanent solutions. I, of course, we want to keep in mind both the people living in the encampment and the people who live on MLK Way and the Marvin Williams Center. We know they need relief too. Thank you for the time you've been taking to discuss this, and for the fact that, and for the consideration you've given, and please just do what you can to actually find some place for them to go so that they have a better quality of living than what's going on right now for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else for public recognition? We'll go here in the room.
Hello, I'm Erin Hale, the Executive Director of the Downtown Bremerton Association. I first want to mention no one deserves to be homeless and be on the streets, but why are any of our vets on the street? I am very honored to work in partnership with many of the people here today, and I'm just building this coalition for Main Street and downtown revitalization. I just met with Dr. Terry Cox, the interim dean of OC, and I'm thrilled to invite her to the downtown space. She's from Kingston. She's not as familiar with downtown, but she was excited by all of the ideas that we have and all the ways in which we can work with various departments within OC. And in fact, they have programs that help transition anyone in transition from the streets that go through rehab or whatever their situation is to find better education and employment. And I would love to help be a part of that bridge building between KCR, OC, all of these organizations that have an amazing amount of resources for our unhoused population. So there's so much that's going on this weekend. I just want to share that the West Sound Film Festival happens on Friday through Sunday. Taste of Kitsap and Rock the Dock gets kicked off on Friday. Taste of Kitsap goes Friday through Saturday. And the Kitsap Wine Festival is on Saturday as well. Bremerton First Friday is Friday. Our downtown is so activated and alive, and it's really fun to hear so much commentary outside of Bremerton about what we're doing. I'm very excited to share that the Admiral Theater, through the work with Nate Murphy, has opened opportunities to our local restaurants. In exchange for gift cards, they're going to be advertising. We have, of course, Anthony's, Remedy, and Evergreen Pizza on the list, and we're reaching out to even more restaurants. So it's really exciting to work with a large entity like the Admiral and really get them involved with the downtown space. We just met with Kathy Garcia at the port, and we're really excited that there are still opportunities to work with the cruise ship passengers. We're going to see if we can create a maker's fair where people coming off on Fridays are greeted with all of our amazing artisans right there on the dock. So more on that later. And Revitalize Washington is in October, and we have 4 people going to represent Bremerton. And I can't tell you how humongous this is, not just because there's so many incredible sessions and it's nice to kind of divvy up the educational opportunities, but it's incredible that all of you have buy-in to what we're trying to do right now. So I just want to thank you so much. And I want you to know that Bremerton is being seen. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your comments. Anyone else for public recognition? Making sure no one else online. All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public recognition and move on to general business. Over to Clerk Hooper.
General business item 6A, resolution to adopt the Warren Avenue Bridge multimodal project preferred design alternative. Presenter is managing engineer Shane Weber.
Good evening, City Council, President Coughlin and Mayor Wheeler. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, great. Thank you very much. My name is Shane Weber. I'm the managing engineer for transportation for the city of Bremerton and the project manager for the Warren Avenue Bridge project. And I'm really excited to be here tonight. I was hoping to be there in person, but I couldn't. But I'm really excited anyway to be here to present this preferred alternative to City Council and to the public. This is the culmination of over a year and a half, almost 2 years worth of work by staff and our consultant to get to this point to present the preferred alternative to you all. And so I have Aaron Knight with Shekar Jewel, who will be presenting tonight. And after his presentation, I'll have a couple other points that I wanted to make to City Council. But before we get to the point of the presentation, there's a point that was point of confusion last week in a study session that I just wanted to point out real quick before we start. And that is the agenda bill and the information in the agenda bill before council. There's actually there's 2 different components in there, or actually 3 different components. There's a component that has the administration's resolution and presentation. And then there's another resolution or a second resolution and presentation that's attached to the agenda bill that is not administration's. And I just want to make sure council was aware of that. And then there's also public comment on top of that. So the administration's presentation that ends, if you're looking at the PDF in your packet, that ends on page 54. So I just wanted to make sure that that was cleared up before we began. And so with that being said, I'd like to hand over the presentation to Aaron Knight to walk through the presentation with council. And this presentation that Aaron's about to give is the very same presentation that we gave to City Council a few weeks ago on July 12th in an information session. So although it's 39 slides long, it goes really quick, I promise. So, so Aaron, can you take it away with the presentation?
All right, thanks, Shane. Council President Coughlin, members of City Council, once again, thank you for the opportunity to come present to you. As Shane mentioned, I think this is the 3rd time in 4 weeks that we've come in front of the council to provide an update. So this presentation, as Shane mentioned, is the same that was provided in a study session 3 weeks ago. It's also very similar to what was presented at the open house that we hosted back in June. So just kind of an introductory remark. This presentation represents the culmination of nearly 2 years of work on this feasibility and alternatives analysis. Looking at widening the pedestrian and bicycle facilities on the Warren Avenue Bridge. So just to recap the agenda real quick. So this evening we'll discuss the need, intent, and budget for the project. We will outline the public outreach process that we utilized during this this alternatives analysis effort. We will present the results of the community survey that we did back in April. We will explain the alternative screening process that we used based on those results of that survey. We will present the results of the screening process, and then we will also discuss the Q&A that was received during our open house in June. So just to recap, again, I know everyone on the council is familiar at this point with the need and intent of the project. So I'll spare everyone, but for those in the room, the existing conditions on the Warren Avenue Bridge, it's a major connection between East and West Bremerton. The existing sidewalk facilities are substandard. And it's a vital access or a vital link between neighborhoods and the region as a whole. So identifying the project intent really at its base is to add ADA accessible pedestrian facilities and bicycle facilities where none currently exist. And then as far as the budget for the project goes, the city was successful in obtaining $1.5 million from the state of Washington in 2020 to begin the preliminary engineering and permitting phase of the project. This was then followed up in 2022 when the city received a $25 million set aside through the Moving Ahead Washington funding package for the construction of the improvements. So to recap some of the previous efforts that were put into this project. So this is not the first time that the bridge has been considered for improvements. In 2021, the SR 303 corridor study included the Warren Avenue Bridge as one of the many components and recommendations of the corridor study. Again, I'll spare everyone the details of reading off all of this, but in short, the project recommended a 10-foot clear width facility on each side of the bridge combined with wayfinding, center barrier lighting and other safety improvements. In addition, in 2020, the East Side Village sub-area plan also identified improvements to the Warren Avenue Bridge as being a critical component of the development of the East Side, of that neighborhood. So that study recommended an 8-foot wide facility. So on both sides of the bridge. So, that's the consistency between those two prior planning documents. So just to dive into the existing conditions on the bridge a little more, the bridge is quite long and it's over a navigable saltwater channel. So it's a very high profile, important facility. It's about a third of a mile long. It's nearly 68 feet wide. It has 4 lanes of travel. What I don't think we have on here is it's 30,000 vehicles per day travel over the bridge. And as noted, the existing pedestrian facilities do not comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So they are less than 4 feet wide now, and the ADA requires a minimum of 5 feet wide. And the big component of this project is that the structure is owned and maintained by WashDOT. So while the city is the lead agency and the proponent of the project, WashDOT is the owner and responsible for maintenance of the bridge facility. And I'll just skip down to the last bullet here. The bridge was constructed in 1958 and is eligible for the Register of Historic Places. So, it's definitely a notable and known entity for the city. So as far as our public outreach, again, I mentioned that the project overall is approaching the 2-year mark. We had 4 stakeholder meetings in 2022 and 1 in 2023. This was a stakeholder advisory group that was assembled of a number of constituents throughout the city, from Olympic College to the Bremerton School District, a variety of city departments, as well as other organizations and groups that are very active in the city. There were 2 presentations to city committees, the Complete Streets Committee and the ADA Committee, and we'll talk a little bit more about the ADA Committee presentation a little later. As far as public outreach, we had an open house in April of 2023 that was followed by an online survey that will be referenced here in a moment. And then we also held a virtual public house in June, which again, we'll talk about some of the results of the public feedback from that. We've been in close coordination with WashDOT throughout the entire project. And one bullet that actually missed it on this slide is we've had an active project website. It's warrenavbridgeproject.com. So I'll give a cheap plug to the website. And please, if you have any other further information, this presentation, as well as all of the other stakeholder meeting recordings and most of the information that's been prepared to date is available in one form or another on the website. So to recap, again, this has been presented a number of times, so I'm going to skip through some of the information here, but we conducted a survey in April. We received 417 responses plus a number of partial responses. So that's why the The total number will vary a little bit through here. So just, we reported the data exactly as we received it. We had an overwhelming majority are those who live in Bremerton. So we felt like we had a really good sample of folks that live in the city that were responding to this particular survey. Anytime you put something online, you never know exactly what you're going to get. And so we felt like we had a good representation. So we asked folks how they currently use the bridge. These you'll add to more than 100% because folks are allowed to select more than one alternative. But I think what was really encouraging is that we had 45% of the respondents that walk and 26% bike. So there's clearly a very heavy need for these facilities on the structure. We also had some demographic questions about how long folks have lived. And again, a great distribution of folks who are new to the city and folks who have lived here for a long time. So we feel like we had a good cross section of respondents. And then we asked a little more about, again, maybe I'll skip over some of these just in the interest of time. On number 6, we asked which side folks prefer to use because some of the alternatives that we looked at included one-sided improvements. And so we wanted to find out if there was a strong preference one way or the other. And then the last one, again, a very encouraging response is, do you anticipate using the bridge as a pedestrian or bicyclist once the project is complete? 82%. So, I think that shows that there's a great demand for this facility when it's complete. So questions 8, 9, and 10 from the survey really dove into the heart of the kind of differentiation between the alternatives that we were looking at. So question number 8 was, do you have a preference for widening the walkways on only one side of the bridge or on both sides of the bridge? And here we saw an over 2/3 majority preferred widening for pedestrians and bicycles on both sides of the bridge. Number 9 was, if the project widens walkways on both sides, which would you prefer? And again, we saw a nearly 2/3 majority preference towards equal width walkways on both sides, accommodating pedestrians and bicycles. The last question was, from your perspective, what minimum walkway width is needed to comfortably accommodate all pedestrians and bicyclists on the bridge? And I think that what we, the responses that we received here were no surprise that in general, a wider facility is preferred. So, we definitely took that away. We also received a number of comments from the open house. I think we had a mixed bag of widening on both sides, widening on one side. Folks just addressing that we need a safer facilities. We had a lot of interest in, so I guess a point of clarification too that I didn't make is that this study is looking exclusively at the improvements on the bridge structure itself. Initially, it was scoped to look at some of the connection points, and I'll present that here at the end to discuss that a little further. And so we had a lot of interest in what those connections are. However, due to budgetary constraints, it became clear to us fairly early on in the project that we were going to need to focus the grant funding that was available on the bridge improvements themselves. But nevertheless, the off structure improvements are, there's a lot of interest in those as well. So to discuss a little more about our alternatives analysis process, we like to use this funnel, because ultimately we're taking many and reducing it down to one. And so applying successive layers of funneling. We performed an initial screening, which we kind of dubbed the fatal flaw analysis. This is anything that from a either structural component. So we have a structural engineer on the team that reviewed all of the proposed alternatives and determined whether or not the alternatives would be able to be constructed without requiring a major reconstruction of the bridge substructure. So these improvements are all focused on the superstructure or the top of the bridge. And so any of them that would have required modifications to any of the bridge piers, those were identified as being infeasible. We also, through our coordination with WashDOT, identified a maintenance limitation of theirs. They use trucks to inspect the bridge currently. The current model of truck they use has a certain reach. There are trucks that have a larger reach. And so we kept that in mind. And then for structures that are not able to even be reached with those larger trucks, they have to use rappelling rope teams. So that's an exceptional means of doing inspection. It's very labor intensive and it's frankly very dangerous. It requires, for me, it was very well contextualized when they noted we're going to have a boat in the water as a rescue skiff. So that really drove home, the importance of, these folks that are inspecting the structure are, at a certain amount of danger. And so, we came to the agreement that any improvements that require a rope access team would be considered infeasible. The next was our alternatives evaluation. So this is where we're looking to address the goals and objectives of the project. And we also integrated the public feedback at this stage. And the last one is the recommended alternative, and what should be our top priority for design. Noting here that after this stage, and so as noted on the slide, we're at this stage right now. Immediately following this, we will need to continue to work with WashDOT on approval of the recommended alternative because, as mentioned, it is their structure and they will be responsible for maintaining it. And they'll be a critical partner in the design and the permitting of the project. So we need to make sure that everything that's being approved and by the council tonight is able to be moved forward. So again, this is a lot of information for a slide in a room where everyone's far away. So forgive me, but this is to show that we evaluated 11 different alternatives throughout the project, and we'll kind of dive into some of the specifics of these as we go. But these were the 11 that entered the funnel, if you will. And so applying our level 1 screening, which was our structural and our maintenance criteria. Sorry, thanks for your patience. Internet pipes are slow tonight. So the structural feasibility, there were two alternatives of the 11 that were not structurally feasible because of the added weight would require that significant amount of retrofit. So those 2 alternatives were removed. And then regarding the maintenance and inspection access, there were 2 alternatives that would require the rope access team. So those were also removed. And so following the level 1 screening, we had 7 alternatives that advanced. So looking at the level 2 screening, coming back to the original intent of the project, which is to add the ADA accessible pedestrian facilities and the bicycle facilities where none currently exist. We consulted very closely with WashDOT on this because ultimately it is their bridge and does require their approval. There are, because of it being on a state highway as well, requires a number of approvals through the DOT. And we consulted directly with the WashDOT Office of Equity and Civil Rights with regards to their interpretation of ADA requirements for the structure. And they ultimately directed us that any improvements to the bridge would require upgrading both sides of the bridge to be fully ADA compliant, which, as noted earlier, would be a minimum of a 5-foot walkway. We also incorporated feedback that was received from the city's ADA committee, and through the work with the committee unanimously opposed options that built improvements on only one side. They also unanimously opposed a 5-foot wide improvement on the west side of the bridge, where the east side would have a wider facility, and they unanimously supported alternatives 2 and 3, which proposed at least a 10-foot wide path on each side of the bridge. So we distilled these down, combined with the prior slide. These were our 3 working preferences. These are what helped to educate the or were major components of the survey questions that was presented earlier. So conforming those 3 preferences with the survey questions, we were able to confirm that there was a strong preference towards widening on both sides, equal width widening, and identifying that there was a threshold there at about 10 feet where folks were wanting to see a facility of a minimum of 10 feet. So again, using the same filter system, we have kind of filters and filters here. We started with our 7, our public preference number 1. We had 2 alternatives that did not widen on both sides. So alternative 7A and 8A only widened on one side and left the other side untouched. So those were identified for removal. Alternative 7 and 8 did not provide equal widening on both sides. They provided either a 12 or a 14-foot path on one side with a 5-foot sidewalk on the other. And then preference number 3, a minimum walkway width of 10 feet or greater. So as you can see here, there were 2 remaining alternatives, alternatives 2 and 3, that survived the screening process. And so those represent a 10-foot clear width walkway on both sides of the bridge or a 12-foot clear width walkway on both sides of the bridge. Now, I want to point out real quick, that is not the only difference between these alternatives. Alternative 2 also includes overlooks. And so these would be 6-foot wide, so along the length of the bridge, or I'm sorry, extending out from the bridge 6 feet, 24 feet along the length of the bridge. It includes overlooks. So, thinking of interpretive signs, seating, opportunities for art, things like that, ways to really build a sense of place about the bridge. So there are intended to have 2 overlooks on each side for a total of 4 overlooks on the bridge. Alternative 3 did not include the overlooks on both sides. Alternative 3 was getting close to the weight limits of the structure, and so adding those overlooks would have eclipsed the capacity of the structure. And then the other difference is on the second to bottom row there, that alternative 2 is able to utilize WashDOT's existing U-bits that they currently own and operate, and alternative 3 would require the purchase of a larger U-bit. And I think I forgot to identify the acronym U-bit for those in the room, is a under-bridge inspection truck. So that's the inspection truck that they use to inspect the bridge. So we had to, our final screening criteria is level 3. Again, reminder that the project has received a total of $26.5 million for construction. And because of the way that the funding has been received, it's provide the city with a lot of flexibility. And so, there's not a lot of options to supplement this funding easily that wouldn't add more constraints and more cost and more complexity to the project. And so staying within the available funding was critically important. And we were, identified that alternative 3 at $29.1 million exceeded the project budget. And so that left alternative 2 at 25.6 to be within the project budget. We still, however, because of that, want to keep alternative 3 alive as much as possible. We think that there's a tremendous amount of interest in a 12-foot wide walkway. And so we're continuing to work with the DOT on looking at options for keeping alternative 3 as a potential additive bid item, so that it could be carried forward through design and bid. And should, for whatever economic reason, they come in, more cost effective, then we would look to build a larger facility if it was possible. So as far as our next steps, I promise I'm wrapping up here. Working with the legislature. So there was one funding wrinkle that we encountered this spring with the legislature's funding package. Originally, this project was scheduled for funding for construction in 25 to 2027. However, due to a variety of reasons, that funding was pushed back to what's referred to as 2029 plus. It's basically projects that have been identified and granted funding, but was not yet scheduled. And so again, a variety of reasons that led to that. However, the city has worked with the lobbyists to, determine the feasibility of potentially bringing that funding back into a 2025 timeframe, which was the original timeframe for construction. And we've been told that if the project is able to determine a preferred alternative and move into design and demonstrate that it is moving forward and we'll be ready to hit that target, that we have a potential opportunity to bring that funding forward. The staff and design team will continue ongoing coordination with WashDOT regarding the potential purchase of a larger U-bit. And I think Shane's going to talk about that a little more after I wrap. And then, of course, we have to finish the feasibility report that we're doing and move into design this fall. So again, I'll kind of breeze over this. This is new information for those in the room. So just wanted to provide this. There were a number of 27 total comments that were received during our open house in June. This was a virtual open house. We responded to as many of those as we could within the time available during the open house. So I'd encourage that if you haven't had an opportunity to watch that, well, you can watch me give this, or you can watch my coworkers give the same presentation again. So, so we tried to respond to as many of those as possible during the open house. However, we also provided some summary here. Again, this information will be posted if you desire to read this in more detail. And let's see, there was one I wanted to mention. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. I think that any of the questions from here, if there's repeat questions, we're happy to answer them tonight. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of interest in the off-bridge improvements. So this is something that we did look at early on in the project before it was determined that it was not going to be practical to include that within the scope while maintaining the budget that's available. So we looked at a number of connectors. So on the top picture is the south side of the bridge. Olympic College is in the top left of the image. Their parking lot is. So that's 18th Street. That's at the top of the image. So we've looked at some traffic modifications to modify the access to, or from 18th Street, modify access at 17th Street, just to kind of smooth some of the traffic flow and address some of the existing traffic movements out here. We looked at a pathway through Upper Roda Vista Park. So this would connect Warren Avenue down to Elizabeth Avenue, which would be the Bridge to Bridge Trail route. Another phase of the SR 303 corridor study included a tunnel under SR 303 at this location. So we provided some very high level discussion and cost estimating for the tunnel. And then on the lower picture is the north side of the bridge, which included a pathway between Warren Avenue and Lebo Boulevard. Again, this is closing the links for the Bridge to Bridge Trail, as well as on the upper half of the lower image is the connection to the existing sidewalk that was extended as part of the Lebo Boulevard project a number of years ago. So as you can see from the estimates that are provided on the right side of the slide, each of these are sizable improvements in their own right, and cumulatively exceeded the city's available budget. So just to finish up here with regard to schedule, we're mid 2023. We're right at the tail end of the feasibility and alternatives analysis, looking to move toward permitting and design, with that completing in 2025 and reaching construction at the end of 2025, and then for a couple of years thereafter. So with that, thank you again for your time. I know this is the third time in 4 weeks that you've heard this presentation, so appreciate it. And I'll hand it over to Shane.
All right, thank you, Aaron. I just have a couple of points, and Aaron, you actually hit on a couple of them, so thanks for doing that. But one of the pieces of new information I just want to let council know tonight is that staff, we had a conversation with WashDOT today about our proposed preferred alternative with moving forward with two different designs. A 10-foot on both sides and a 12-foot on both sides. And WashDOT has committed to designing one design for us. And they're recently running into staffing issues, resource issues, and we will be continuing to work with WashDOT on moving forward. If this proposal moves forward on designing that second option, but there is a possibility that WashDOT doesn't have the capability of doing that and designing that second option, which means that there would be the likelihood that a consultant would need to be brought aboard to do that work, which is more expensive and something that we weren't anticipating. So it could be likely that we come back to council with a funding request potentially for design of that second option. So that's I just want to be completely clear with council, give you all the information that I have at this point in time for deliberation and making your decision. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is that in our public outreach process, as we went through the process, there's lots of different opinions on this project on, what is safe, what is not safe, what's a good facility and what's not. And through our public outreach process, we tried to make sure that we heard everybody. We had everybody's voice that wanted to speak into this process. And we feel like we took everything into account, and with the preferred alternative and that we're providing to council tonight. And I just wanted to say that there are very strong opinions, and for transportation projects, that's just the way it goes. There's always a lot of strong opinions of what you should be doing. But I feel pretty confident that we took all the input through this process that Aaron just described, and the preferred alternative is the culmination of that input that we received. So I wanted to say that as well. And with that, I think we're finished with the presentation.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Weber, and thanks to everybody in SGC Alliance for the hard work over a long road here. I want to also thank everybody who's written in. If you sent an email before 3:30, it's in our current packet on this topic. If you sent it after 3:30, it will be included in the updated packet after the meeting. So again, thanks for everyone who's already written in. But with that, I'll ask if there's any member of the public who wishes to comment on this item. Same as before, we'll have 3 minutes, and you can either come to the podium in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. You can also ask to state your name for use in the meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, President Coughlin and Bremerton city members, for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight about the Warren Avenue Bridge multimodal upgrades. I'm a supporter of wider, safer shared use paths on the Warren Avenue Bridge. I support 12 and 8 with additional resources targeted to expanding the west side to 10 or 12 as funding allows. There are many reasons to support a wider path on the east side of the bridge as a key part of Bremerton's planned bike and pedestrian corridor, but I shall focus on 2 tonight: safety for vulnerable users and equity. I'm Diane Iverson, resident of Bremerton and an advocate for safer streets for all. Although I represent West Sound Cycling Club on the Warren Avenue Bridge Stakeholders Committee, I'm speaking to you from a different perspective, not as a cyclist, but as a walker. I'm speaking to you tonight as a 73-year-old grandmother who is a bilateral amputee. I walk slowly and carefully with a cane, and I am most vulnerable on crowded sidewalks or when people on bikes are moving faster than I am. I fell on the floor of the Seattle Ferry Terminal exit when a leash dog bumped my cane. Many of us with balance issues want safe places to walk in Bremerton, and I hope the Warren Avenue Bridge becomes one of those places. The 2-foot difference between 10 and 12 matters, which is why we want the side with greater expected use, as you saw in the survey, to have a 12-foot path. That additional 2 feet will make it safer for walkers, for cyclists, and people who use mobility devices to cross our bridge. Faster moving walkers, runners, and cyclists could then move past me at a safe distance. 10 feet does not provide enough protection for individuals like myself, and that was one important reason why federal and state guidelines for shared use paths have steadily widened to the recommended 12 to 14 today. Last week, Bremerton City Council members expressed an interest in symmetry on the Warren Avenue Bridge, implying both sides of the Warren Avenue Bridge should be the same width, in this case, 10 and 10. Safety is more important than symmetry. Are recent bridge multimodal upgrades in the Puget Sound area prioritizing symmetry over safety? Absolutely not. A few examples: the Bellevue Main Street Bridge, 12.5 and 8 feet. The Kenmore Sammamish River Bridge, 16 and 5 feet. The SR 520 just has 14 feet on one side. None of them are symmetrical. The decision to widen. Let's build a bridge that brings us together as a community and doesn't leave anyone behind. Let's build a bridge with 12 feet and 8 feet and fight together to get additional resources to expand to 8. Twice as many people participating in the city survey desired a 12 or a 14-foot path over 10 feet wide. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Please go ahead in the room.
Good evening, Council. My name is Amanda Rogers. I've lived in Kitsap County most of my life, and I've been a resident of District 4 for the past 11 years. I've been a runner, triathlete, and cyclist for at least 25 years and completed numerous running, swimming, and biking events. I also work in the engineering department at the City of Bremerton. If you watched or attended last week's council study session, you may recall a condensed version of the incident I'm about to tell you, as told by City Engineer Ned Lever. In April 2022, the Saturday before Easter, I was running on the west side of the Warren Avenue Bridge up towards Sheridan. After starting my climb, I saw a man walking the same direction as me, not quite to the halfway point across the bridge. While normal pedestrian etiquette is to say on your left, hope pedestrians move to the right so you can pass on the left, this man was hugging the left side of the narrow path, so I decided to pass him on the right. I called out, "On your right," a couple times, but when I approached the man, he moved to the right, blocking my path. When I was almost right behind him, I repeated myself, but he stopped, turned around with a cocked fist like he was going to punch me, and aggressively stated no. Startled, I was able to push my way past the man, finish my run, and break down crying once I got home. If the man I encountered had been a little bigger or a little stronger, I'm not sure what would have happened. Up until this incident, I'd been lucky and never had a problem running alone. but I will no longer run across the Warren Avenue Bridge without both my husband and my phone. Yes, the pedestrian paths on the Warren Avenue Bridge are too narrow and non-ADA compliant, but the alternative option of adding a 14-foot wide pedestrian pathway on the east side of the bridge while adding only a 5-foot wide pathway on the west side of the bridge is not a good choice, especially when it comes to crossing the bridge safely on both sides. My vote, strictly as a female athlete, is for alternative 2 for the Warren Avenue Bridge multimodal project. I believe 10-foot wide pathways with 2 bump outs per side of the bridge will be wide enough for cyclists, pedestrians, and wheelchair users to share the path. Alternative 2 is the safest, most cost-effective, equitable choice for the bridge, and only once the project is completed, I will finally feel safe enough to cross the bridge as a pedestrian by myself. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, City Council members, for this opportunity to speak to you on the Warren Avenue Bridge upgrades. My name is Sharon Budd, and I'm a resident of Kitsap County and frequently ride my bike through the city of Bremerton and surrounding area. At the age of 83, I'm looking for well-marked, safe bike lanes on which to ride. I must commend the city for their new lanes on Kitsap Way. What a safe improvement the city has provided for all cyclists. I'm excited about the future of Bremerton for our entire peninsula as we begin to redefine our transportation options. Make those improvements safe enough so people like me will venture out on our roads. We all know wider is safer. Common sense tells us and research backs it. I strongly support the 12 and 8 over the 10 and 10 option. This is a tremendous opportunity for the city of Bremerton to build for the future, including walkers, strollers, handicap wheelchair users, and cyclists navigating East Bremerton to the heart of the city of Bremerton. Bremerton is a jewel of a city which people are beginning to discover. Please take the leadership role in bringing about the change that is so needed to this beautiful city and for the safety of all people living here. Think big. The money will be there because the citizens of Bremerton are actively involved in making this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Council. Yeah. I'm Paul Betke, a resident of Bremerton, but I'm here speaking on behalf of the Chris Susie, who's president of West Sound Cycling Club. So I'm just going to read his letter. He was unable to be here tonight. So President Coughlin, City Council members, good evening. My name is Christopher Susie. I'm here tonight to support the 12 and 8-foot multimodal upgrade to the Warren Avenue Bridge. I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant and current president of West Sound Cycling Club. While Diane Iverson has superbly addressed the safety aspects, I want to take a moment and address the economic advantages of enhancing bridge multimodal access. Besides making travel safer, it increases economic opportunity for non-drivers, getting to jobs, businesses, and other locations that are virtually out of reach without a car. Bike facilities provide a direct economic impact by saving taxpayers money. When many cities, streets, and sidewalks are in disrepair, bike-friendly solutions cost far less to create and maintain. Cycling is a low-impact activity with benefits for both mental and physical health, and safer streets lower medical costs by reducing the number and severity of crashes. Just 30 minutes a day of cycling reduces a person's risk for depression, anxiety, dementia, high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular disease by at least 40%. Cities that invest in bike infrastructure are helping their residents feel happier and healthier, ultimately reducing their subsidized healthcare costs. Studies on bike infrastructure and local economy show that bicycle lanes and bike parking are good for business. Bike-friendly cities almost always have higher rates of pedestrian traffic, bringing more customers into local shops. Some U.S. cities, such as Chattanooga, Tennessee, have seen increases in bicycle tourism, with visitors coming specifically for their bike paths, cycle tracks, and mountain bike trails. Cyclists coming from the south to access the Olympic Discovery Trail need to pass through Bremerton. Let's capture those tourism dollars by making Bremerton a bike-friendly city. Companies looking to attract younger workers, particularly in creative and tech industries, have increasingly been locating to bike-friendly cities. Because of this, cities such as Chicago, Minneapolis, Austin, and Memphis have created bicycle master plans to draw in new business and talent. I live in Port Orchard and routinely cycle all over Kitsap, Mason, Jefferson, Pierce, and Kitsap counties. I rarely ride in Bremerton. The places that attract me and my fellow cyclists are those with robust, safe cycling infrastructure. For example, I can ride from the north end of Gig Harbor to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge via the Cushman Trail, then use quiet side streets to drop down to Point Defiance Ferry Terminal and continue into Tacoma on the Frank Herbert or Rushton Way Trail. These trails are busy because walkers and cyclists can get to restaurants, cafes, and shop safely. Research on bicycling participation in the US shows that more Americans want to ride bikes for transportation, but don't because they don't feel safe. 50% of US adults in one study report worrying about being hit by a car while riding a bike. However, 43% said that they would be more likely to ride if there were lanes separating motorists and cyclists. Imagine
sorry,
a
that's 3
20%
minutes.
increase in walk-in traffic,
I'll have to
coffee
stop
shops,
you
and
there.
restaurants. So,
Thank you so much for your comments.
Hi, Jane Rumbolowski. So hopefully you got the email I sent you today where when I was researching safe multi-use paths, the very first piece of information that came up on my Google search was WashDOT's design guide, and they call out for 12-foot widths for a shared use path. They do allow for them to go down narrower when the use isn't as high. Also, AASHTO, the Bible of highway design, calls out for a minimum of 11 feet to 14 feet. And all of those are not including shoulders. Well, on a bridge like this, we're not going to have shoulders anyway. I feel that a lot of the surveys that were done and questions that were asked of the public were kind of leading questions, like this is the answer we want, so let's ask the question this way. I think if you had asked people, do you want 12 feet on one side and 8 on the other? I think you would have had unbelievable response to that instead of saying even, because on the north side of the bridge, there's no good connection point on the west side. On the east side, there's great connection points to get down to our bike plan that hopefully someday is completed, but it's not on the west side. So I feel that can safely be left at 8 feet. You can put the lookouts on it if people are more comfortable with that. But the staircases can go for now. We don't really need them either. But I really hope you decide on an 8-foot and 12-foot, with the 12-foot being on the east side of the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone online with their hand raised? Oh, okay, let's go. Oh, we got another in the room.
Hi again, Travis Merrigan, District 4. I'm here speaking in favor of Alt X, which is the 12 by 8 foot option put forward by Council President. We're talking about the bridge, and we're thinking about the bridge very closely, and that's worthwhile. But I'm going to invite everyone to lift their eyes a little bit and think about the neighborhoods in the city that the bridge serves. There's 3 facts that I think you guys are all aware of. Fact number 1, 20,000, experts say 20,000 new residents are coming to Bremerton, and an extra 5,000 are coming to the workers are coming to the shipyard. Okay. A lot of people. Where are they going to live? Fact number 2 is this document here. This is the zoning map. You can't really see it, but you can see the big colors. Okay. Green is basically single family housing, and the reds and the oranges and the yellows are places where the city, throughout all the years, has invited business people and multifamily housing to be placed. I drew a big black line, which is the 303, which is the bridge in Wheaton and Warren. Most of the development that the city is inviting is east of the bridge. Okay, that's where the city's telling those 20,000 people to go. Third is there's a bike network being built. doesn't really have a name. I'm optimistic that the multimodal plan will get started and we'll be able to really put a name to it. But there's already new and improved infrastructure going in downtown on Washington, through Evergreen, across the bridge. We're gonna do something with the hospital district up to View Ridge and then onto Elmira. That's all on the east side of the bridge. That's where the bicycle network is going. So focusing back on the bridge, what does that mean for the bridge? It means we're gonna have a lot more foot and bicycle stroller traffic on the east side of the bridge than on the west side of the bridge. That's what the city planners are telling us. That's the facts as I see them. That's where the bike network is going. If we set the goal of a great north-south bike trail that goes all the way from downtown, all the way to the north end of the city on the east side, now what do we want the bridge to look like? Okay, there's going to be more traffic on the east side. Let's build the east side better. Let's build it a little bigger. Let's put those extra feet on the east side where all the traffic is going. Hopefully we can increase to 8 feet or larger on the west side as well. I feel really bad about what happened to the woman on the bridge. That's terrible that she was attacked. Let's do it awesome. Last thing, what about equity? Okay, I live in 4. 1 and 4 are not going to get the beautiful bike facility. The streets aren't set up that way. But equity isn't about getting everybody the same thing. Equity is about getting people in neighborhoods what they need. Okay, what 4 needs is east-west communication across the district. That's why I'm calling for the 6th Street bike lane, for the tunnel underneath Warren. What first needs the same thing, right? They need to be able to get over to that great trail that we're building on a 12-foot east side of the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else in the room or online for public comment on this item? All right, I'm not seeing anyone else for public comment, so we'll go ahead and, oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Here we go. Yes, Sanjay Stone online. Thank you all.
Hi, thank you. I'm new from Silverdale. I just moved in. I'm in the Navy, and I actually bike commute to Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, or try to as often as possible. And I think that I just wanted to say that I'm in support of the wider lane, because it would allow for a better commute and a safer commute, and also allow for joggers and riders and people with baby carriages to be able to use the bridge while also making it safe for bicyclists, so that we're not causing interference with each other. And I just would appreciate, and I'm really looking forward to this project. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, double checking online or person, going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment on this and look to the council for a motion. And let's go to Councilmember Fry.
Oh,
Sorry, saw her first.
Oops.
Okay.
I'll
Go ahead, Councilmember Fry.
I'd like to mix it up a little bit, and I'd like to move to adopt resolution number 3363, endorsing the City of Bremerton Warren Avenue Bridge multimodal project preferred design alternative.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're open for discussion. Councilmember Fry, the floor is yours.
I got, at our last study session, I got a little triggered by the equality, the look of 10 and 10. And I'm a Libra, and I like balance and aesthetics and all of that. And I got caught up in it. And then I reminded myself when I got home that being equal doesn't mean the same. And I believe that to my core. I also believe in advocacy. And I believe in listening to public comment and public advocacy. And I'm very disappointed that in all the presentations, we haven't called out the West Sound Cycling Club as an expert. When we're fortunate enough to have folks that are embedded in cycling, bringing us data, bringing us studies, bringing us information, compelling us to be better, I want to hear about it. I want that to be included in the thought process. It's now included in mine. I believe that by taking 2 feet off of one of those 10-foot sides and doing what I've heard tonight, the feds and the state are all projecting as the standard for multimodal is 12 feet. One was 11 feet. 10 feet isn't going to cut it. Let's do the 12 feet on one side, do the 8 feet, which is it might not be the 10, that we would love to have on that side, but it's better than 5. When I heard Dr. Crawford earlier this morning, or today, I heard him say, we deserve the best. We're proud. And I want to be proud of this bridge. I want that pride to be catching. And I want people coming to Bremerton and through Bremerton, getting a really good perspective on what we want to be. Let's build for what we want to be. And I think this decision is going to send a message either way, around what our priorities are for multimodal transportation in Bremerton. And if we don't do this, we're behind the curve, and that bridge is built, and it's another 50 years or so until we get to do something different. I don't want to make that mistake. I'm aspirational. I want to tell staff, go make it happen. Go get it in budget. I believe in you consultants. I really do. And I think our bicycling community has spoken. Our disabled community has spoken. And I think we should speak with this resolution. That's it for me.
Can I ask a point of order?
Sure, point of order.
Well, I just, I feel like we've not introduced this. It's in the packet, I understand, but we just had a whole presentation that
Sure, is there
we
a
didn't.
rule that's been broken?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was wondering if you've already looked into this, if you could just explain that, but also should somebody introduce what this is to the general public? So people
Sure, I can take
understand
some lenience way there. So the motion that Councilmember Fry made was for resolution 2263, which supports the alternative X of 12 feet on the east side and 8 foot on the west side, which is in the packet.
That's all. Right. And that's all the presentation we're getting on that, besides the actual.
So that's it. Everything is in the packet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go next to Councilor Mockler. Second, you have the floor.
Thank you. I also liked symmetry very much, in part because Director Nucky last week, in much simpler and more direct language, referenced the tendency of people in traffic to perform risky, non-mature actions, like darting across the road. If both sides were 12-foot, that would be really great. And there would not be that impetus to go to the wider side. But we have a budget. We have a budget constraint. We have a budget constraint that requires a total of 20 foot for all the multimodal access, 12 plus 8. It makes sense. It's a good plan. It's fiscally conservative, and it serves the people. I really recommend that we vote yes on this motion.
Yes, Councilmember Younger. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't. Nope. No, I'm so sorry. Let's go to Councilmember Chamberlain. Okay, that's fine. Yes. Sorry, I didn't see your light on. All right.
So Councilmember Chamberlain, I'm good with you going in front of me if you want, please.
But you like to go last. Okay.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Wait, we need to direct everything to
Oh,
President
goodness.
Coughlin there.
Yeah. So
Oh, goodness.
Councilmember Chamberlain, why don't you go?
Director
Councilmember Younger
Nucky.
after, and that'll be my ruling.
Director Nucky, I have a question about funding. Are you available to answer that for me? Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. So everybody thinks that 8 plus 12 equals 20 is the same cost, but can you tell me, is that really going to be the same cost?
We don't know. We haven't, the 12 by 8 alternative was never developed by the project team. There was no cost estimate that was developed on that. Structural engineer hasn't weighed in on it. The consultants never weighed in on it, so we can't confirm that it's within budget.
Thank you, sir. And then, so what I understand though about building 12-foot, first of all, we'd be losing because of weight. We'd be losing the extra character details that would be added into, the overlooks. Can you explain that a little bit, about what we're losing with the 12-foot and why the weight is disproportionate?
I honestly, all I can say on that is, on the 12-foot side, there's never been a proposal for 12-foot plus bump outs. On the 10-foot side, bump outs have been proposed. I know that, this is a 70-year-old bridge. It was never designed for this kind of a load. And so you're really pushing right up to the upper limit of the ability of the bridge to withstand dead load. So when you start looking at, you really need a structural engineer to evaluate the capability of the bridge to handle improvements. I guess I would just like to say that. And again, this hasn't been evaluated.
Hasn't been evaluated. Do you have any idea what the additional cost would be to have this revised and evaluated? I mean, as far as even just staff time to have this revised, because I see so much work put into bringing us the original alternative that is recommended by administration. And I'm just curious how much additional time it would take to do an additional review.
So I'm going to defer to Shane on that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But before I do that, I want to just mention there's cost and there's time. We've been very responsive to the council in this entire process, and as a result of that, our consultant's actually working beyond the top level of their contract right now. So I'm not sure what that value is, about $10,000, I think. But from a time perspective, we're right at the limit. If we want to be able to have an opportunity to go to the legislature through our lobbyist and try to pull that funding forward for construction in 25, 26, 27, we really need a preferred alternative to be identified. But as far as the actual cost goes, Shane or Aaron, would be better to
and I
answer that.
appreciate you giving me your time. Mr. Weber, do you have an idea? Thank you, Director Nucky. I appreciate you. Mr. Weber, hello. So do you have an idea about how much time it would be to do? I mean, we're at the top of our contract for the consultant. What would that look like funding wise?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. And I think we have our consultant in the room. And so I'm going to forward. Yes, we do. And so, what Tom indicated was that we are at the top of our contract for amount for the consultant. And I think the question is purely, you're not asking us to go back to the public with this alternative. You're just merely asking us how, what is the cost and what is the feasibility of this particular alternative without the public process included with that. Is that correct statement?
I think so. And
Okay.
here's my confusion is we had all of this consultation, we had all of this review, we had, a lot of work done, and now we're getting thrown this alternative, which requires additional evaluation. And so, I'm just curious. I just don't want to beleaguer this. That's my perspective. I don't want to beleaguer this, but I do want to know if I am to go along with this, how much additional time it would take.
Okay. So Aaron, so I'm gonna kick this one to Aaron to give Aaron's perspective on it, because he's a consultant and he has a structural engineer that's working for him on this. So Aaron, do you have a perspective on this?
Yeah, thank you, Shane. I think as both Shane and Tom mentioned, that time is a very critical component as well. Our structural engineer, this is a really busy time of year for them. They also do bridge inspections, so they're uniquely, qualified to have inspected this bridge in the past. And so summertime is very busy for them. And so they have already indicated to me that any sort of new evaluations or anything wouldn't be able to be looked at until at least September, so about a month from now. And so we would unfortunately be at a little bit of a pause, variety of, like I said, inspections, vacations, things like that. So they would be able to start in September. It takes them a few weeks because they need to be looking at structural framing and detailing and making sure that's all going to work. This isn't a brand new arrangement. These are combining things that have been previously identified. So it won't be, the same lift, but they still need to vet the concepts. So, and as Director Nucky mentioned, we've
So
not
would-
done a cost estimate.
It wouldn't be able to be done until September.
That's
so-
what we're looking, started in September, yes.
Okay, so that's, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so we don't have any idea what the additional cost would be, the additional time would be. We went through all this public process. We have a preferred alternative that was identified through multiple sources. I respect the criticism that Mr. Obolowski gave for the questions and how they were worded as if they were driven. I can definitely understand that. Sometimes there is bias presented in the survey process. What I also know to be a rumor, but perhaps true, is that some people filled out the survey more than once. And if you did that, you know who you are. And if you didn't do that, then my mistake, and I'm just passing on a rumor. But I am not in support of this alternative. I want to get the show on the road. Councillor Fry mentioned that, we talked earlier in our briefing that she trusts the process. And I'd like to encourage her to trust the process in this instance as well. I do appreciate the cycling club for what they're bringing to the table as far as feedback. So I don't want to say that, this is not to say that I don't appreciate what you're saying and what you're bringing to the table as far as feedback on a wider path. What I want to do in this instance is trust the process and go for a 10-foot alternative. And I do not support alternative X is what it's being called. Thank you.
Councilmember Younger.
Okay, thank you. So Councilmember Chamberlain asked some questions that I had of staff. So I was trying to sort through this. Hear a lot of public testimony and a lot of valid reasons for the 12 and the 8. It's troublesome that 12 and the 8 is not, I'm looking at all the alternatives. It goes to 8A. If you count them, there's 11 alternatives and not one of them is 12 and 8. Unfortunate, right? In retrospect. The closest one is 14 and 5.
It's a 12.
Which gets you at 25.6, and then you have a 12 and 5 at 23. I'm not a structural engineer, and it sounds like we're not getting. Bottom line is, I want this to be in budget going forward. I know reality is when this gets built, when if it's 27, 28, 29, it's going to far surpass that, in my opinion, based on being on council all these years. All these projects go way over anticipated, especially when you're talking about today's dollars. But I believe the intent is we need to go show to WashDOT. We picked an alternative, a choice that actually meets the current budget and the amount of money that we're being given. And the administration, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. The 12.8 alternative X. This is a difficult question. Last study session, I really like the overlooks, which we had talked about, which is on alternative 2, the 10 by 10. Does the 12.8 proposal have an overlook on the 8-foot side? Is that possible? And I can ask the consultant, but it's not his suggestion, the option X. I believe it's the Council President Coughlin. So my question then, if that's the case, Council President Coughlin, does the X alternative include an overlook on the 8-foot side?
Yes, as called out in the resolution, the alternative X is specifically a combination of the east side from alternative 3 and the west side from alternative 1. And the west side from alternative 1 has 8-foot clear width with the 4 8-foot extra overlooks. So yes, it does include them.
So the question is, we had, I won't call it testimony, but we had our consultant talk earlier during the presentation, why the 12-foot ones don't have the overlooks. And I believe you indicated it was because of the structural issues, the weight. So I don't know if your proposal, look, if it makes sense, if it's within budget and we get the overlooks, I'm all for it. Please understand that. But is it? And what I'm hearing from the administration is we don't know.
That's correct.
That's troublesome. And it's really, really unfortunate when we're 2 years into this and it comes down to a vote, and we can't delay it 2 weeks because what I'm hearing is we won't have an answer in 2 weeks. I mean, I'd be all for delaying it 2 weeks if we can get an answer. And then there was, because there's, Mr. Weber talked about public process. Well, we could easily rephrase it and send out a survey and all that stuff. But it sounds like we want to get an answer for 2 months and it's going to cost extra money to do the feasibility analysis. I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm hearing, and please administration speak up. This isn't a back of the envelope calculation. It would cost us even more money to come up with this. I do have a question on, I think it was Mr. Ducky in his email showed a picture. It's in our packet of a 10-foot wide path. And Paul, if I attributed you and that was wrong, I apologize, but it's in there. And it shows the bicyclists. And I believe there's one example where the rail bumps out to give more room for handlebars. Is that in the design, or could that be put in the design under the current cost, or has that been considered? That detail is not in this presentation. So that's a question for anybody, Mr. Nucky, that's you would like to have answered. Answer that, Mr. Weber.
And I'm sorry, I don't know what exhibit you're looking at.
I'll take a shot at it, Shane.
Okay.
We haven't designed that yet. We haven't gone down that path at all. Those sorts of details will be developed in the design, but we just haven't crossed that bridge. We're trying to identify the preferred alternative for the widths, and then when we get into the design, we'll get into those sorts of details, lighting details, all of those sorts of details.
Okay, so and there's quite a couple, few puns in there, your statement there, Mr. Nucky. But so I think which I appreciate the puns, it's not critical. The shared use path in the packet, and whoever provided this showed bridge shared use paths only on one side are commonplace, and I guess it's page 97 in our packet. It shows the shared use path on Lake Washington, which is not ideal, I-90 being 10 feet, but with straight guardrails. And then there's another example in the packet where they talk about curved guardrails to give you more room. Is that something that adds additional weight? Is that something that we could incorporate in the design? I'd appreciate an answer from consultant.
Yeah, as Director Nucky mentioned, it's not something that we've looked at yet, but it's certainly something we could discuss.
Okay, so it's a possibility, and do you believe that would be a cost prohibitive possibility, given that you've got 26.5 million in the budget in today's dollars, and alternative 2 with a 10-foot has 25.6. Is it within the realm of probability that we could have guardrails that bump out, so to speak? I'm sure you've seen them for 900,000 additional, so we'd still be on budget.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of design considerations to be made throughout the process, and we're going to be seeking additional public input throughout the design of the project, and so we'll have a number of times where we're intending to present more visual aids, things like railing choices, and as Director Nucky mentioned, lighting. And so that's where we can start to make some of those refining decisions on where do we prioritize some of these things. So if there's something else, if there's a give and a take and we decide that that's a railing type and it turns out to be more expensive, is there somewhere else that we could look to save money? So I think I don't want to speak on behalf of staff, but I think that that's something that we would be continuing to look at.
And Aaron, I can expound a little bit more on that. I mean, these are details that we just haven't looked at this early in the process, and I think that if there is a want to look at different railing types, that's something that I think we can certainly consider as we move throughout the design process, including this one. But whether or not it's going to be in budget, I don't know the makeup of this railing. I don't know how much it costs. I mean, that's something that we'd have to work out as we move forward in the design.
Thank you. And then the other thing that I found troubling was the new information that Mr. Weber gave today. But my impression from is alternative 3 basically is not that's off the books because of unless I'm wrong here, we heard that WashDOT only can support one design and would cost us extra money. That's what I heard today. So really it's alternative 2, which is 10-foot. I mean, to be a realist, that's what we're going with if we vote for that, and unless the alternative X is approved, which has its own issues, and I have no idea if it's within budget. And I really want to approve something that is within budget. So I've got a real problem with that, but I also have a real problem with alternative 3, but not being a reality. So let's say what it is. It's going to be alternative 2, in my opinion, that goes forward if that's what this council votes on, and not with, I mean, the resolution says consider alternative 3, and I guess it could happen, but from what I heard, it's not going to. This is a real tough decision. Really tough. The other thing is I want to even criticize my own statement last week when I were talking about the paths leading up, the sidewalks. The intent eventually is for all the sidewalks leading up to be 10 feet wide, the Wheatonwood corridor. I thought, well, so that makes sense, symmetry and whatnot, have 10 feet on the bridge. But when I was sitting here listening to everybody's testimony, if you will, and thinking about the bridge design, if there was a problem in clearing that 10 feet on a sidewalk, you could jump off the sidewalk. You can't, there's nowhere on the bridge. So it's 10 feet is 10 feet. So that's problematic. That's why I could see the reasoning for 12. I'm sorry, this is not an easy decision. As I'm speaking out loud and listening to everyone else, I don't know which way I'm going on this. That's all I have.
Councilmember Denny.
Thank you, Council President. I first want to thank the administration, Director Nucky, Mr. Weber, for I'm sorry, consultant, I forgot your name. I apologize. But I want to thank everybody for the hard work that's gone into this. And I especially want to thank the community members who've talked so passionately about this issue. This is a really big decision for Bremerton. This is the main thoroughfare that connects the two peninsulas that make up our community. And so we want to get it right. And there's passionate views on all sides. I especially want to say thank you to all the District 4 constituents that came out today. I think this was the largest showing of the District 4, so I appreciate that. One alternative that I think people are not talking about is alternative 0. And alternative 0 is that this project does not move forward. And so I want to ask either Director Nucky or somebody else from the administration. This was talked about a couple study sessions ago, but I think it's really important for the public to hear. How important is this to move forward quickly to ensure that the project goes forward? Because we have lots of alternatives in front of us, but the worst case attorney mind of mine that I have is nobody's talking about alternative 0, that we do not move forward with any of these projects because we do not secure the funding from the legislature. And if we're bringing an equity lens to this, like I absolutely understand the biking communities. I'm full for multimodal. As somebody who enforces civil rights for a living, I'm concerned that somebody from my district in a wheelchair is able to go to Council Vice President Chamberlain's district in their wheelchair. That's something that I want to make sure happens. That's very, very important to me. So if somebody from the administration could talk to us again, what are the risks? What are the probability of this not going forward if we don't get it in front of the legislature under budget, within budget very soon? What is the probability that no project goes forward?
So I can speak a little bit to that because I spoke about it last week as well. And so we had $25 million for construction of this project that was programmed in this last legislative session in governor's budget. It was programmed for the 25 to 27 biennium. And we found out as the legislature went on that the $25 million for the construction of this project was reprogrammed to the 2029 plus outer years. So that could be, year 2029 or any outer year after that. And so in talking with our lobbyist, he indicated to us that we need to be able to demonstrate for this legislative session that we're under design, that we're moving this project forward, that we have a path forward, and that we can demonstrate that to be able to have the opportunity to move that $25 million construction funding back to where we need it to construct this project. And so that tells us that we have some urgency here to be able to move past a decision and to move forward with this project, whatever that may be. So we have this opportunity to reprogram these construction dollars. There have been projects, and most notably the one around here is a Belfair bypass where funding isn't guaranteed, and it can be moved, from year to year. And the Belfair bypass is a good example of that. It's been under design for many, many, many years. And so that's the risk that we may run if we do not move forward with the design of this project.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
I hope I answered your question.
You did, and I think Director Nucky wants to add to that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely agree with everything you said. I guess the one thing that I would want to say is that every year that we delay the project, the costs go up. How much we don't know. It depends on inflation, right? 5% is like $1 million, right? So if we delay a year and we have 5% inflation, that's $1 million. And if you take a look, we're very close right now to our budget with all of our cost estimates, and our cost estimates have been escalated. And I can't remember what the factors are. Aaron could speak to it, but we were looking at 2025, 6, and 7 costs right in through there. But if you push that out, those costs go up, but the budget stays the same.
Thank you. And I believe the newest economic report, sorry, this isn't a question for you. But the newest economic report says the economy is doing quite well. And as I looked at home rates right now, we're at 7.8%, I believe, if people have a great credit score. So that's a concern of mine as well. When I saw Resolution X, I said, without breaking quorum to myself, I thought this is a great idea. It gets the ADA compliance on the west side of the bridge. It gets the 12-foot on the east side of the bridge. Maybe we can talk about the overlooks and the pushouts, see how much that's going to cost. I expected coming today and being able to say, how much is this going to cost? Will this be in budget? Hearing that we need to go back to the structural engineers, that we need to go back to the budget analysts to actually figure this out. This concerns me. And I'm not coming with an agenda right now. Like Councilmember Younger, I am open and have not made my decision yet. However, I really do want to caution people. I think the worst thing that could happen is that we promise the people of Bremerton an amazing multimodal project of 12 to 14 feet or 12 feet on one side, 8 feet on the other. We're going to have outlooks. We're going to have a space for art. We're going to have beautiful viewpoints so that we can beautifully view all of the nature that Bremerton has to offer. And come 2026, things have changed in the legislature. And sorry, the funding isn't there anymore. And nope, it's not going to be 2029. It might be 2032. Oh, there might be a recession that comes up, but we don't have the coffers for it. Possibly another pandemic. We need to think about the alternate zero that nobody has been talking about. And that is that we keep this bridge that is not ADA compliant, that does not serve the needs of anybody in the community. And I would really, really caution everybody to think through that before they make their vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodnow.
All right. I'm always hearing we need to trust the process, and then we didn't follow a process. We haven't taken this option to a study session. We don't really have any presentation on it. It just showed up in my email on Monday. So anyways, that aside, I'm not opposed to the 8 and 12. My comments last week were not for aesthetic symmetry, but I thought that the 5-foot west side was ridiculous. The concerns that I have that I'm still trying to work through. I asked a few questions before, but a lot of the bridges that were shown in the samples are fairly flat. And the Warren Avenue Bridge is quite a climb. So it makes sense maybe to have the wider side on the climbing side. But also, if you're running, pushing a carriage, or biking southbound, you're going to be going faster. It's gravity. It's just going to happen. So now we've got this side where we've got users going uphill slower because gravity's adverse effects. And we've got 12 feet and there's not even a place to pull to the side to wait, like we might have with these 48 foot long overlooks on the 10. My concern is, again, fast folks coming down and slow folks going up. And I don't know, I don't know who can answer that question. But I just think that if, at least the bicycles and things like that being separated, I think would be safer for everyone. I can believe I'm wrong. And again, I actually like the 12-foot option on both sides. And I said it would be great if we could at least get a 10 and a 12. So 8 and a 12 is not that far off, but I just, that doesn't make, I just get worried about the speed at which you could come downhill on the Warren Avenue Bridge. I want to get it right. I think that's all I have for this round. Thank you.
Perfect. We can do a second round if needed. So let me start off by saying thanks to all my council members for giving this really great thought. I really actually want to start thanks to the mayor. I know the mayor, you did a lot of work with our legislatures to get this funding, getting this in place. So I want to just say I sincerely, genuinely appreciate that. I know it's not easy to get this money. And thanks to our state legislatures for doing the move ahead Washington package and including this. Thanks to all the hard work by staff and our consultants. It's been a long road. I want to start and say why I'm so invested in this project. And first off, I have walked, run, pushed a stroller, and ridden a bike on every side of the Warren Bridge and every possible connector at this point. I've used the heck out of that thing. I've also gone over to Seattle and ridden the greater area, and I've ridden on 8-foot pass, 10-foot pass, 12-foot, 14-foot, and 16 pass all over the place. And I believe I'm the only person on council and in administration today that has gone off and done that. I've been the council stakeholder on this project for every year. I've been to every meeting, I've read every document, every single public comment. I've deep dived into the Washington codes, our codes. It's really been a year and a half of this. And this is a big project. This is one of the biggest projects we've tackled. It's going to last for 30 plus years. And as was said, it's going to impact the entire city. And frankly, I just care. I want to see us do the right thing here. That's going to last for 30 years. And it's an important decision. And the reason I proposed this 8 and 12 and why I've been presenting on this already, it's the Warren Bridge multimodal project. And I want to emphasize the word multimodal. It means something. It's not just a buzzword. It's a mix of hikers and bikers, strollers and rollers. It means everybody. And as we heard, 12 feet is the modern standard for a multimodal shared use path. It's in the Kitsap County road design manual and bike plan. It's in WashDOT's plan. It's in about everything across the state. And all new pathways in all the other cities are at least 12 feet or wider. We've heard some even go into 16. That is the modern standard. And so I want to see Bremerton be as good as those other cities and up to that modern standard. And I don't feel that we can really call this a multimodal project if we don't have at least one side at 12 feet. I don't think we're meeting the scope of this project and what this money was intended for by the legislature if we don't have at least 12 feet on one side. And council has thought that for a number of years. It's why council approved the initial contract with WashDOT in 2021 that specified specifically a 12-foot shared use path. It's why the first contract with SGC Alliance had 4 alternatives specified, and 2 of those were 12 feet, 12 feet shared use paths. That's why the second contract amendment we did had extra options, and those were all 12 and 14-foot paths. So council has been pushing and hoping for 12 feet for the past several years on this project. And I know I really appreciate all the public testimony we've heard from the experts on why that 12-foot matters, especially on a bridge, and why it's so important to safety and why it's so important over 10 feet. So I spoke in my council report the other week, laying out from the council stakeholders what I saw the options were. And I said at that time, 14 and 5, I think is the best option. I still think that's the best option, but I told you where I was willing to compromise because I love to compromise where I can. I think we always need to look for the compromise and the best solution. I actually put this option on the board a month ago when I handed out the various alternatives, and I labeled the 3 from the consultants, and I labeled alternative X with 8 and 12. So this has been on our radar for about a month. But I've also listened to the concerns my fellow council members had about having only 5 feet on one side, about the safety concerns of 5 feet. And so the main thing to me is to ensure that we have a 12-foot minimum side. So this is a good compromise. It's a compromise that takes into account all those concerns. It allows us to have 12 feet for the multimodal path on the east side, which we've heard is so important for connectivity. It allows us to have 8 foot on the west side, including the overlooks, for both safety and aesthetics and a viewpoint. And I want to address a few comments on going up and downhill. We can't regulate sides. In Washington State, a bicycle can ride on sidewalks, either direction. So when this bridge is built, it's not going to be, oh, you're heading northbound, take that side of the bridge, or you're heading southbound, take this side. Multimodal means mixed traffic both ways. You have strollers and bicyclists and pedestrians walking both ways across the bridge. And as was stated, as we get the city growing more and more and that east side becomes used, you're going to have more traffic. So there is no this side. The east side makes sense. Here's a big one. It is in budget. This alternative X is in budget. And I can tell you 2 ways that it's in budget. The first is just look at the cost of alternative 1 and alternative 3. Again, which is alternative X is a mixture of the 2 of them. Alternative 1, 8 and 8 is 23.1 million. Alternative 3, 12 and 12 is 28.1 million. You take half, you take the other half, it comes out to 25.6. That's the exact same price as 10 and 10. 8 and 12 should be the same price as 10 and 10. That's one way. The other way is the consultants actually did give us a price. When I did a handout again a month ago with alternative X listed, I estimated 25.6 million from that simple math. Public Works and consultants came back with a modified version that went in our packet, and they listed out specifically that it was 26 million for construction, and they're budgeting an extra million for the U-bit, which we do not have to budget. So the cost for design and construction from my math is 25.6, same as alternative 2. From the consultants, it's 26. Both are in budget. We have 26 million to work with. This alternative absolutely is in budget. As Mr. Rabolowski pointed out, if you want to skimp a little, don't redo the concrete stairs, wait until we get the connector money. But this proposal is in budget. I can't say that enough. In terms of being studied for structural feasibility, they did the structural feasibility analysis on 12 and 12, and that is structurally feasible. 14 to 5 is structurally feasible. We're talking about 8 feet with a few overlooks. That is nowhere near the weight of a full 12-side path along the entire length of the bridge. I appreciate the concern that this, hasn't been studied, but let's use some common sense. 12 and 12 is structurally feasible. We know 8 and 12 will be just fine. We're not going forward with something that's been extremely studied. This is going to permitting and it's going to full design. So we don't have to know 100.0% right now that it's structurally, we know it's feasible. 99.99999%. This thing is feasible and it's in budget. So those arguments, I'm sorry, they don't hold water. This is a reasonable compromise. Going back to a few others, on the urgency, I agree. The legislature, rightfully so, allocated a lot of money towards infrastructure projects. It's great to see our state and the nation really embrace infrastructure. And so they basically allocated so much money for infrastructure that WashDOT said, whoa, we don't have enough staff. We'd have to start hiring. We don't have enough rebar on hand. You will have to prioritize a bit. But the Warren Bridge is not singled out as one project that's been, escalated. It's about half of all the projects have been pushed off until later years. And as far as urgency, the administration brought this to us just the other week. I mean, it was originally scheduled in the timeline to come to us months ago. So I appreciate the need for urgency, but it's not council that's been delaying anything here. But if we have an urgency, if we want to go to the legislature and say, gosh, can you bump us forward? We're ready to go. How better to do that than to say, we have listened to all the public testimony. We know 12 and 8 is the best option that satisfies all the goals and criteria. We know it's in budget. We know it's structurally feasible. We're going forward, unified as a city, with this option that really represents the will of the people. That will get our legislature's ears perking up. That will get them on board with us and working to get this project moved forward. And let's talk about public input. I think we've overwhelmingly heard from people speaking today, from the emails we've gotten, from the op-eds, and from the surveys itself, that people want a minimum of 12 feet. It's overwhelmingly supported. From the online survey data itself, half of folks wanted 12 feet or even more. It was twice as many than the folks who wanted 10 feet. The written comments from the big public open house we had here, 3/4 of all written comments that mentioned width said they wanted at least a 12-foot minimum. I think we're doing a real disservice to the community if we don't go forward with this 12 and 8 option. And I was especially more so hearing today that we may only get one shot at this. 12 and 12 does not seem to be on the table at all from what we're hearing. So it's really 10 and 10 or 8 and 12. We know 8 and 12 works. Don't overthink this to the point where you get paralyzed by indecision. I know it's the right decision. I have spent more time probably on this project than anything else in the city. And I am telling you, it's 12 and 8 is the right decision. I appreciate all the due diligence and all the hard thought about it. We have the money. We know it's feasible. We know it's the right option, and we know it satisfies everybody. So let's move forward unified on this. With that said, we'll go to a second round if people have more comments or questions. Yes, oh my goodness, sorry. I don't want to get yelled at for not seeing, so I'm going to tell you what I saw. Just Councilmember Fry, then Younger, and Dennehy. So we'll do that order. All right, let's do a round 2. Thank you.
My kids are going to love it that I'm being quoted so often with my trust the process. It's TTP, by the way. That's what our mantra is. I trust the process until I don't trust the process. I'm not stupid. So I'm going to trust the process until I get information and education and data that tells me, wait a minute, I have some questions here. And I have to say, I was on the SR 303 corridor study group, and I remember the Cycling Coalition being a strong partner in that. And that's probably why we got the recommendations, that we did. I don't remember recommending any specific width, by the way, but that might have been done when I wasn't there. But we certainly had a vision. Multimodal transportation is now, but it's going to be even more evident as we move into the future. I want to attract young families. I want to attract people that want to be outside, getting around safely. And I also don't want to be Bremerton, where, they could have gotten the big one, but they, the process, I got to tell you, the process was stilted. This process, I watched this stakeholder advisory group try to come together. I kept asking, why isn't Olympic College involved? Why isn't Olympic College? And they weren't involved for months. there weren't meetings, there was a lot of fits and starts. It was COVID for whatever reason. But to get to this juncture and not have a 12-foot option really on the table with some generosity for the other side, I mean, I'm disappointed. And I'm going to be heartbroken, I think, if Bremerton has to settle because we took too long. You know, look back and see where we could have saved some time. That's what I want to do. Let's look back at this and see where we could have maybe had the right people at the right time, at the right table, a heck of a lot earlier. And maybe we wouldn't be here this late in the game.
Councilmember Younger.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one is for the administration, and the second one is probably more rhetorical. First question is, if council passes resolution or alternative X and it is not within budget, firstly, it is not structurally feasible. We heard the argument that it would, and I understand the reasoning. So if either one of those two conditions exists, what happens next? Do we get to choose another option and vote for that, or is it option 0 by default? It's for the administration, whoever would like to answer that.
So I can help answer that question. If you know, once council passes a path forward, then I need to engage Washshot and the consultant to start designing this. And Washshot's going to require a certain level of design off the bridge in order to be able to even start the design on this thing. You know, if we get to a point as they start working on the design in this and it becomes unfeasible, then you know, I think that's a you know, a point that is you know, is something that we need to come back to council and let you guys know. They haven't done, WashDOT has not done any work on this whatsoever, and they're looking for us to provide them a path forward for them to even get started. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a level of work that's going to be needed in order to do this and to determine whether or not it's feasible. And it's just going to be you know, I don't know how long that's going to take, but there'll be some time where that's going to have to occur.
Okay, so Shane, we didn't quite get the answer. So then we get another bite at the apple. If it's not structurally, if it's not within budget, we can go ahead and vote for the 10 and 10.
Well, I think that's a difficult question to answer. I mean, we're looking to get underway with an alternative right now, and I think if it turns out that during the course of design that it isn't structurally feasible, then I think that you know, that would be something we'd have to come back to council and say, hey, this is not a feasible option, and I think we'd have to talk about what that looks like at that point in time. I think. You know, I think, you know, that's I'm thinking about it from a design standpoint and from a design standpoint. That's what I'm thinking at it for. But I think we would have to go back to council and let you guys know that it's not feasible, and we'd have to look at reversing direction. And I think what would happen is that we waste a little bit of cost with the design work that we did. I think that's what would happen.
Okay, so from when you just told me, Shane, Mr. Weber, it sounds like we would lose time and would lose money, but then we could go and resubmit. That's what it sounds like to me, is a distinct possibility.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess the other thing I would add to that, Councilor Younger, is that we were hoping to get moving with the permitting on the project as well. And the permitting on the project is going to require us to have a good idea for what that alternative is and what we're moving forward with. And so the permitting process, you know, can take a long time. And I think the other thing to note is that permitting process, depending on what we come up with, would maybe need to be relooked at and maybe restarted depending on how far we are. So that's the other aspect of it.
So the second point I've been thinking about, and unfortunately the young lady just left, our city engineer, or one of our city engineers, not formally our city engineer, but she brought up her incident, if you will, about running down the current walkway and having that encounter. And I understand, okay, the multimodal, it's ideal for the 12-foot. But if you're a runner and for whatever reason you decide you want to run down the 8-foot, you don't have any control of who else is going down the 8-foot. Now I understand the bicyclists that are knowledgeable would prefer the 12. I get that, but that doesn't prevent someone going down the 8. And so just keep in the back of my head, okay, what about the folks that are on the 8-foot lane? They're being impinged. That's the right term. They're restricted. We don't know for sure even if the design will have the overlooks, but let's say for the sake of argument, it does have the overlook. They're 24 feet long. The bridge is 1,700 feet long. What is your odds that you're going to be able to find that overlook in time if you have an issue? It's 2 extra feet. Yeah, I'm struggling with this again. So,
Councilmember Denny, then Mockler.
Thank you, Council President. So Councilmember Fry wants to trust the process. There's a part of me that wants to trust the president on this one. He's clearly been the one most involved in this process, but in order to do my due diligence for my constituents, I want an answer from the administration. Is it this simple? Can you, the budget, is it actually the 23 million plus the 29 million and split that difference in half? Is that how this works? And did the consultant give that during a study session? Because I don't remember it, but I do trust President Coughlin.
I can answer a little bit of that. And Aaron, if you want to jump in, please feel free. But first of all, it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as taking one and being like, yeah, compare it to the others and saying, yeah, that's going to be the budget. It's not that easy. We haven't looked at it. We don't know if it's structurally feasible. The other thing is, if it has a 12-foot width on it, it will need a U-bit for it, a new U-bit. And so I think President Coughlin may have indicated that it didn't need the U-bit, but it does. So that's an additional cost on top of that. We did provide a rough cost when that alternative was provided about a month ago. But once again, that was a rough cost. We didn't look at it in detail, and we didn't cost it out. We certainly didn't cost out the overlooks as part of that. So, I think, if we want to really say for sure this is within budget, we'd want to take a look at this again. We'd want to take a look at and have a structural engineer and have their name behind it and get council the comfort level they need, for the budget of the same. But as of right now, we didn't look at it, and I'm not confident that that's the budget. I'm not confident to say or to tell council that this is within budget.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. And
Mhm.
there's something else to add.
Yeah, I just want to say that we talked about this a little bit at study session last week. Was that the costs for these don't scale linearly. There's some things that are fixed. For example, no matter what we do, we're going to have to address there's birds that nest on the bridge. So that's going to be a fixed cost no matter which alternative we do, and it's a large number at that. And so there's some of those large fixed costs that remain across all the alternatives. And then there's the things that do scale, things like the structural steel and stuff like that. But even then, those don't necessarily scale linearly. Those scale exponentially just because of the cantilever. So I think you're right that you're in the ballpark. The problem is that we're dealing with a very fine difference here. And so we would request time to go back and, be able to refine those estimates. as Shane mentioned, to provide that added level. of
And I know
security.
this has been asked and answered, but I need to hear it again. I know that there are structural engineers that are very busy right now. What kind of ballpark timeline, and I'm not going to hold you to this because this is a complete guesstimate on your part, but how long would it take, do you believe, from your best guesstimate to complete that estimate for us?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, if we were to ask them to basically provide the same deliverable for this proposed alternative as what's been with the prior alternatives, they would look to get started in September. And then, give or take probably 3, 4, 5 weeks to deliver that.
And is there an option if we move forward with this alternative X? Would that need to be completed before we get WashDOT on board starting to design?
Yeah, WashDOT needs an alternative to move forward in order to get started. But there's a certain amount of work that we have to do on the civil side of things before they get started. So there'd probably be maybe a couple of months of civil design work to get in our hands in order to provide WashDOT with what they need to move forward. So there is a little bit of a lag there with WashDOT.
Okay. And do we have any pulse on our lobbyists, how if 2 months would significantly reduce the chances that this gets built?
I don't have an answer to that. What I'm being told right now is that we need to be underway with the design by end of September, is preferably earlier, to be able to demonstrate that we are moving forward with the project. That's what I'm being told.
And I would just add it, we need a preferred alternative selected by council. When we have a preferred alternative identified, a resolution, this is the alternative. We'll take that alternative and work with our our lobbyists to try to pursue the legislature to pull the funding forward. That's what we need. We need a decision.
And if we make the decision tonight, thank you for that, Director Nucky. Follow up if we choose the alternative X right now, can we take that directly to the legislature and skip this other aspect of getting the structural engineers and civil engineers involved?
We would still need to do that, but that wouldn't slow down us trying to lobby for the funding.
That's
we may find out in 2 months or 3 months that, oh geez, it's $27 million. We don't have enough funding, and then we'd have to have another conversation, but we need a decision.
Okay, that's the answer I wanted or needed to hear. Thank you.
Councilmember Mochler.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Director Nucky. Thank you, Shane Weber. Thank you, consultant whose name I can never recall. I truly beg your pardon. Aaron Knight, thank you. But I guess that person I would really, really like to thank is the Council President, Jeff Coughlin, who has been the assiduous stakeholder on the Warren Avenue Bridge multimodal project, right? It's the multimodal project for well over a year. You talk about your due diligence, there has to be a level up above that Council President Coughlin has exerted in attending these meetings, in doing the research, in doing the work. He has urged us to use common sense. 8 by 8 is structurally feasible. 12 by 12 is structurally feasible. Therefore, I feel like I'm still teaching critical thinking. Therefore, 12 by 8 is structurally feasible. The SR 303 study on which Public Works has heavily depended chose the 10 foot on both sides alternative as the preferred alternative. I've looked at the stakeholders on that, and I don't see any pedestrian or bicycle advocates listed among them. The bicycle counts were done in 2015 at a time when only one bicycle was seen. I'm only 85% sure on those exact figures, but definitely 2015. Think about, I bring this up and I'm bringing it up again.
think about Title IX, right? Money for women's sports and girls' sports. Everybody said, why do we need this? Girls don't play sports. Women's World Cup, ladies and gentlemen, happening right now. If there's a 3.5 foot wide passage, bicycles are not going to use it. Therefore, I think that the preference for the 10 foot on either side alternative is skewed, or was skewed, and is still skewed. Public Works has been remarkably consistent about preferring the 10 foot on both side alternative. WashDOT has moved ahead. The American Association of Transportation and Highway people has also said 12 foot is pretty much the minimum. This is what we're hearing from the people. It's what we're hearing from the regulatory agencies. It's well within budget. That information came, in fact, from Public Works. It's structurally feasible. It's something we can do for our city to, as Councilor Fry said, to bring and attract people who like to move about outside on their own power, non-motorized traffic. That is a great aspect of Bremerton. I really feel that we very much need to approve alternative X, 12 foot on one side, 8 foot on the other, and do a service not just to this generation of Bremerton, but to the generations to come and to the people to come. Thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain.
Thank you. So I too have walked and run and bicycled and pushed a stroller across the Warren Avenue Bridge. I think that what I would have loved to see when I had little people was a bridge with character. I don't want to lose that ability. But what I foresee happening is if the costs get too high, because as Mr. Knight knows, there are, and you highlighted it, fixed costs versus scalable costs, you know? And so I think while I appreciate your work, President Coughlin, and doing some logical sense making of it, the scalable versus fixed costs is not something that you have expertise in. You don't know those things. This is why we go to study session. And so I appreciate that Councilor Goodnow pointed that out. This has not gone through the process of going through a study session. And now we're at the point where our administration has done all this work to get all this funding, has done all this work to get this recommendation. And here we are beleaguering this. And I guess to me, and I guess when I was pushing that stroller and walking across that bridge, I was a broke ass single mom. You know, I was like, I got my car stolen twice, by the way, and didn't have any way to get it recovered. And people are like, what about insurance? Well, you barely can afford liability if you can afford insurance at all when you're in that position. So I was walking across the bridge with like no money, like no car. I couldn't get a taxi, like things like that. And I'm just thinking like $3 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And it's going to be more money down the pipeline. It's going to be exponentially larger based on what we see costs rising. When we get down to 2026, 2027, 2029, when we're eventually going to see these changes happening. And what could we be doing with that money? Yes, Public Works is amazing at getting all of these grants and all of these matching funds. And, you know, you're great at that. You know how to, like, y'all know what you're doing there. And I appreciate it. But I just can't, to me, it's a lot of money. And I just have faith that we're gonna have a beautiful product with the 10 by 10. That we need to get this out the gate, we need to get it moving, and we need to see this through. I don't know what the fixed versus scalable costs are gonna be. That's not my area of expertise. And I'm gonna rely on the people whose area of expertise it is. So when you are advocating for this, you know, larger, better product, like, are you also taking into account the fact that we are not, like, we have a housing crisis right now? Like, yes, and we're going to be gaining more people in our city. And so there's ways that we can build up our city's infrastructure, which is one of the ways is through a multimodal bridge. But I just can't in good conscience, like, put this out there. It's a lot of money that we don't have covered. That's all I'm saying. And if we can't even get a toilet downtown, like, I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous to me. This did not go through the proper process. And I feel like I'm just kind of repeating myself, but I think y'all know where I stand.
Councilmember, good now.
Kind of building off Vice President Chamberlain's comments. The public was invited tonight, or was notified tonight, that we were going to be discussing the 10-10 option. And we presented the 10-10 option, and then council switched it to a 8-12 option. I just don't feel that's very transparent. I don't necessarily have a problem with the 8-12, but I feel like my stomach's kind of in a knot that we just didn't go through the normal way that we do this. And lots of things have been mentioned over the months, but in writing, even though the X was in the packet, in writing, this resolution ending in 3 is not on tonight's agenda. Resolution ending in 2 is on the agenda. We had a presentation on it, we skipped over it, and we're having a whole different conversation that I've never been, besides tonight, able to have a discussion on. And clearly, there's people on council and in the community that were on board with the 8-12 and knew about it before I did. And there's a process, there's a way we do things. And, well, never mind. I'm gonna hold my tongue. I'm not comfortable voting for this right now.
No comments. I'll take another turn. Going back to budget, I've gone and compared all the alternatives to each other, looking at all the different costs. Actually had email with Mr. Weber on this, on the cost scaling. He provided a diagram from the contractors, and the cost does scale linearly to 12 feet. It's going from 12 to 14 feet that there's a jump in cost. So they provided a diagram that supports that. The cost is the same. When asking about the cost of the overlooks, we were given a while back an itemized copy when they're studying alternatives that had the cost of the overlooks. For alternative 1 for 8 feet, it's a total of 0.4 million or 0.2 million if you're just doing one side. So the overlooks are pretty cheap in the scale of everything. Right, I'm not a civil engineer, but I do have a PhD in physics, and I'm also a certified project manager. So I do get cost scaling, I do get engineering, I do get projects, and how this cost comes about. And also know that these have not been studied down to the dollar, right? These are real rough estimates to maybe 1/10 of a million if we're lucky, heck of a million if we're lucky. So the bottom line is that 10 and 10 and 8 and 12, they are the same costs. The best we can estimate, they are the same cost for design and construction. I heard a comment about the U-boat inspection machine. I want to be clear. I didn't say that it's not possibly needed. What I said is that we don't have to consider it in our budget. It's been put forth by the administration a few times that, let's add an extra million in case we need this extra U-boat. We have a letter the council received, 7 months ago now, from the Washington State Department of Transportation Regional Administrator Steve Rourke, saying that WashDOT looks forward to supporting the best option that achieves the goals of the project. And they have mitigation options, but nothing about we require the city to spend money for that mitigation. So we do not need to budget in the U-bit right now. 10 and 10, 12 and 8 are the same amount of money. I've heard the SR 303 study mentioned. I think it's worth mentioning in there that when you read the full study, they started off with 3 alternatives. One was very car focused. There was kind of another, and there's one that was multimodal. And the stakeholder group actually went through the 3, and they said, wow, we really like the multimodal the best. And that multimodal option had a wide one-sided path to the bridge when you read the document. Then they wanted to tweak it. They wanted to combine the best of multiple alternatives to find the compromise, to find what worked best. And that's when they ended up with the final alternative. There's no documentation there about why the final diagram had 10 and 10 on both sides when they started with the multimodal alternative that was wide on one side. So just know that the SR 303 story does not actually make a strong case for 10 and 10. In fact, probably the opposite. Concerns about bikes on the 8-foot side. Again, we have signage throughout the city now marking the existing bike route. Bicyclists will take that. They'll know which way to go. We can ensure we have proper signage. And even more than that, when you look at state law, we can put signage up that says, you know, if we want to say pedestrians only or no bikes on the 8-foot side and make clear signage of how to get to the 12 feet, we can do that. So if that becomes a serious concern now or in the future, we have that option as a city to basically enact local controls within our city. It's in state law. I want to make it clear that we're directing a broad alternative here. This preferred alternative, we're not micromanaging down to the exact design and where to put rebar. We are providing a broad path forward of where to go. It's a big decision, 10, 10, 8, 12. And I really appreciated the comments of what's alternative 0. It's not happening at all, but I think we're hearing the risk is extremely minimal. I've spoken with folks in the governor's office who know this. The backlog is just incredible. Even if we came out of the gate tomorrow with 100% of people on board, the odds we get pulled forward, I'm sorry, they're really slim. They're really slim because there's so many projects out there. So this kind of false narrative that if we don't charge forward, we're going to lose it. If we have a month or two later, we're going to lose it. Sorry, it's just not true. I've spoken to folks in the know. As far as the character goes, yeah, we can keep the overlooks on the 8-foot side. We can have character. We can have the alternatives. This is nothing new. It's literally combining 2 sides of 2 studied alternatives, both already well studied. We did get a cost estimate of 26 million. I think it's 25.6, but within the best of our ability, we know it's in budget. I'll finish up here we've heard the phrase trust the process a lot, and I wasn't going to speak on this, but it's coming up and now I feel I need to. Normally I do trust the process. I think people normally operate in good faith. They all have the same goals in mind, but in this case, I don't trust the process as much. The administration put their foot on the scale heavy early in this process. In at least 3 separate public meetings, the public works director said that his preference was to have equal width both sides. He made it very clear that that was his preference. And this is before any public comments were collected or we heard from the public. And then they designed the questions on the survey. They directed the contractors. Council can't work with the contractors. It's all public works. So yeah, I think there's a pair of glasses, and I think there is a motivation for pushback against this reasonable compromise of 8 and 12 because they put their foot on the scale so heavy so early. They said there was opportunity for this to be studied to find a reasonable compromise. No, it's nothing I enjoy bringing this so late to the table, so late in the game. But I'm sorry, I had no other choice. I'm one stakeholder. I had 5 minutes of my council report to present the process as I've seen it. Had limited time and study session. I'm trying to find a reasonable compromise and make sure that we're not making a huge mistake going forward that's going to haunt us for 30 years if we do 10 and 10. I'll just close up by saying I've never known that this is the right thing to do for this alternative to access 8 and 12 stronger in my life. I appreciate some of the concerns, but the risks, it doesn't pan out, are negligible. And I'm asking you to trust me with all the information I have, not just pure trust, but trust that we've gone through all this. I don't want to have to say I told you so down the road. I'll leave it there, and if I'll see if there's any more questions. If not, we can call for the question.
For the question.
You have a motion to call for the question. I believe in order to do that, we need a certain number of votes. I'll look to you. Sewer. Actually, I believe we need a. Can you help me out with the parliamentary procedure here? Ms. Hoover, I'm calling for the question. I believe it might need a second and there's a certain number of votes, but I need to just double check for a second.
And point of, I believe it would be information, Ms. Hoover, but before anybody seconds, I had one final question to ask.
Yes, let me go slow here because I want to do this correctly.
I'll defer. I'll defer.
Okay.
Thank you,
yeah, go
thank you,
ahead.
Vice President Chamberlain. When reading the motion, am I missing that there's an explicit mandate that the 8-foot side would have overlooks? That's what I would prefer. And is that needed?
I can, just from the resolution itself, I believe sorry, I have it. Let me just read the exact wording.
It refers to alternative 1 from the west side, but then I don't see any wording about overlooks. I just want to make it clear that if we are voting on that 8-foot side, that includes the overlooks.
So in the resolution, it says, whereas alternative X is a combination of the east side from alternative 3 and the west side from alternative 1, resulting in a 12-foot clear width path on the east side and 8-foot clear width path on the west side. So alternative 1 includes the overlooks, so that would by default have it. And I'll point out the administration's resolution doesn't specify overlooks either way either.
Okay, thank you. And I'll defer back to Vice President Chamberlain.
I call for the question.
Okay, let me still. So I'm going to look to Ms. Hoover on,
I would say. Can you hear me?
yes, no, I can.
Do we have a second on that?
Okay, is there a second to call for the
Second.
question? All right, we have a motion and a second to call for the question.
Okay.
So now we need a vote on calling for the question,
Would you like me to repeat the motion?
just to call for the question. Sorry, are we,
Councilmember Fry. This is on resolution.
Oh.
3363.
so sorry, for point of clarity,
Mhm.
calling for the question just required a second and there's no debate, no voting on the actual call for the question.
Correct.
Correct, okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
all.
We stop where we are and we call for the vote. Okay. Councilmember Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
good now,
Abstain.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
No.
Chamberlain,
No.
Coughlin.
Yes,
Motion carries 4 yeses, 2 nos, and 1 abstention.
all right, that concludes item 6. Let's move on to council reports and wrap this up. Next, we'll go to council reports. Council reports on opportunity for council members to provide an update on any issues or events taking place in their district, announce any events they've recently attended or plan to attend, or speak on any other city-related topic. Since this is the first council meeting of the month, we'll start with Council Vice President Jennifer Chamberlain.
Thank you. Okay, so take my lumps and move on. That's what Councilor Younger would say, right? That's right. And that's okay because, I'm encouraged by the fact that they can still take this plan forward to WashDOT and see what happens. So yay for the power public input. Ow. And I hear a howl in the back. Hey, girl. I just want to kind of go back to the houseless, homeless, unsheltered, whatever issue, that keeps coming up. And, I sound real simplistic when I talk, but y'all know that I have, my own experience. I've honestly never had to live on the streets in the same way some folks have, but you know that I have faced housing insecurity. And my goodness, I'm a renter. I'm just, one house sale away from losing my position here, which is honestly half of my income is this position. And so as I come to you in that role, I just want to kind of throw out there to folks that are, I feel like in this room, though, whoever's left, I have some pretty like-minded folks, but so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but, people forget that the foundation of our country, which although does have those deep colonial roots, it is homesteading. People came across this country in tents. Many tribes survived in tents. And so when we look at a tent in our community and we look at it as being, hold on a minute, let me get my book back out. We call it immoral, or we call it uncivilized, a dystopian hell, that people are mentally unstable and drug addicted, and that we're forgetting the foundation of America. America was built on tents, people in tents. I mean, you can be an influencer and build out your fancy van and go be a vagabond and be on social media and make whatever you do being an influencer, and nobody judges you, but you live in an RV and you park at Walmart and all of a sudden you're judged differently. And I can tell you with my lived experience, when I was facing housing insecurity, I was treated much differently by people in law enforcement, by people at the municipal level. When I was court involved, I was treated very differently when they knew that my address was suspect, when my address had changed. They treated me as if I had done something wrong when I didn't get the right paperwork at the right address. Well, I didn't know I had to change my address. Well, I didn't know, there's so many different things going on in that way. And I have some privilege now, and I have some stability, and I have some recovery and some therapy and all these things that I have the privilege of having. And a big reason is because I was a school district employee for 15 years, and those benefits that were afforded by my union allowed me the opportunity to get, the resources that I needed to continue to build back up. And so welcome, Dr. Crawford. It was a pleasure to hear you speak. I cry a lot. I tear up a lot, and you had me going. So welcome to our community, and thank you for stepping up into that role. That's my rant. Oh, blueberry patch is the pea patches are buzzing. Go visit them while everything is blooming. It's beautiful. And man, them pickleball courts, Director Elevato, they are popping literally every day. Because I hear that the noise might be a problem for some folks, but for me, it's like if you live near a bar, right? You expect to hear music. If you live near a park, you expect to hear fun. So I like it and I appreciate it. And they're a cult, those pickleballers. Thank you.
All right, next up we'll go to District 2, Councilmember Denise Fry.
I've got some slides, please. Yeah, thank you. Go to the next one. Last night was what they used to call Take Back the Night. I think now they call it National Night Out. But I got a call this was in my hood, this was in my neighborhood, between Halverson and Sanders, there's an alley. And so the party was in the alley. On the left is Mayor Wheeler. He was really doing well with some cornhole last night. I got to tell you though, Mayor, Officer Greenfield over on the right, and I think he was really looking, is it Brandon? Brandon. He was looking forward to me having just him up on the picture, but I decided his ego needed to come down a little bit more. But he told me that you are going to name him mayor for the day or something like that. Anyway, to be, I'm sure, determined later on. There you go. There you go. So it was a nice evening. It was nice to meet some folks that I hadn't met yet, and always nice to see our law enforcement folks out. I got to tell you though, kind of moving from what Councilmember Chamberlain was talking about, there's a lot of despair on our streets right now. There's a lot of it on MLK Way. And I'm starting to see it in our law enforcement and fire. And it's really hard it's really hard work to go to overdose deaths. And there have been way too many of them. And one's too many, of course, but we got to do something about this. You know, we really do. My heart is just heavy. And believe me, that camping or whatever we want to call it, ordinance is big on my brain. And I'm doing as much thought about it as I possibly can, you know, as we move forward with all of this. Can you move forward to the next slide? We did have a joint district meeting on multimodal transportation as a part of Bridging Bremerton. Yay for Bridging Bremerton, but I saw Josh Farley right after that walk, and he had tears in his eyes because there were a bunch of needles and other things from an encampment that were right in the middle. They had just cleared that morning. And on the Bridging Bremerton Trail, you know, where this event every year, and there's a whole bunch of needles out on the trail somebody had dumped. So yeah, we got to do something about that. Multimodal transportation, we got a lot of great input, which of course led to a lot of discussion tonight. And moving forward to the next slide and the last slide, thank you. I just want to make clear where I am with this. I believe that this decision is one that will make clear the council's intentions and priorities for Bremerton's multimodal transportation plan that is currently being updated for inclusion in the new comprehensive plan. I think we have spoken. And I want this to set the stage. I already talked about trust the process until I can't anymore. And then I'm going to question it. I want to make this really clear. Community engagement is not just doing what they tell you to do. It's not just checking off a box. It's having those difficult discussions, being challenged, and being open to that challenge. Be open to getting pushed. That's how you grow. That's how we make things better. Please, let's be open to this. The role of advocacy groups in our decision making must be respected. It must be respected no matter what advocacy group it is. Those are collective voices, much like our council. They go through a whole process to come to a collective voice. And I don't want to stand by anymore and see those community groups marginalized. Equal does not always mean the same. We talked about that. And let's get on from trust the process, okay? Let's move on. My kids wanted to move on 40 years ago. But just remember this, I always prefer and. And this, what we did tonight, got us there. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Next up, District 4, Councilmember Quinn Dennehy.
Thank you, Council President. I would just like to, you know, I started council in 2021, about 2 years ago, in the middle of the pandemic, and I was sworn in by Judge Doctor over Zoom, and you know, for the first, I believe, year and a month, or first year and 3 months, we were all Zoom squares, right? And public comment was just a little hand raised, and you didn't get to see people. And I just want to say how appreciative I am of the community engagement that has been going on during the last probably 6 months. I feel like there's been a real shift because really important issues have been coming in front of the council. And it gets me so excited to be a citizen here in Bremerton, to see people come out with their passionate viewpoints based on their lived life experiences. And I want to really show my appreciation for the rest of the council. You know, we all come from very diverse experiences. You know, Councilmember Younger, you have a great eye for fiscal responsibility. Councilmember Mockler, you're a passionate advocate for the environment. You know, we all have things that motivate us. I really, really am moved by Vice President Chamberlain's sharing and vulnerability of her lived experience. And just as tonight, President Coughlin's understanding of science and his engagement in the process has changed my mind. You know, your comments really have made me think long and hard about the encampment ordinance. And so I want to thank you for that. And absolutely, I don't want to leave my fellow council members out. You know, Councilmember Goodnow, your advocacy for LGBTQ rights is beyond inspiring for somebody that, you know, is gay himself. And Councilmember Fry, your advocacy for DV and your lived experience. So I just really want to thank the community for bringing those lived experiences to these really important issues and bringing that lens. And just thank you for the robust debate. It actually makes me wish I had put my name in for running another term. I'm going to miss you all. It kind of does, which surprises myself saying that right now. Yeah, it'll pass. No, I'm just kidding. The next thing I want to say is just Dr. Crawford, welcome. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I was at your interview. I was extremely impressed. I think you are exactly what the Bremerton School District needs. Just a little bit about my background. I taught special education in New Orleans post-Katrina. I did that because I was a sociology major in crime law and social control. And all of the ills that we are talking about, that Vice President Chamberlain is talking about, and you know this, Dr. Crawford, the number one variable of determining whether or not you are going to be addicted to drugs, if you are going to be housing unstable, if you are going to interface with the criminal justice system, is the education system. And so I know that you understand the weight of the job and the role that you have in making sure that this community for the next 20 to 40 years is dependent upon the success of our school district. I've seen it, you know, in New Orleans and you know, when I got my master's in education policy. So thank you for that. On a personal note, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you're in front of a majority queer council. And you know, as a 12-year-old boy growing up in Montana with what I felt at that time, a horrible, worst secret that you could have, not being able to live my truth. If you would have told me as a 38-year-old, I'd be sitting on a city council with a former council president who is the leader of the Kitsap Pride movement and an amazing example to LGBTQ youth and adults, and a new council president who is also a proud gay man with a son and a lovely, lovely husband, and a bisexual identifying woman who is a strong advocate for her trans kids, getting addressed by a new superintendent who also is living his truth. It would have given me a lot of hope, and it would have saved me a lot of turmoil before I was able to comfortably come out at the age of 20. So thank you. And thank you to this council. I just have a lot of appreciation for Bremerton right now and this governmental process and the administration as well. Thank you. That's all.
Next up, District 5, Councilmember Michael Goodnow.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Crawford. It was a pleasure to meet you. It was great to have you here and to hear your remarks. And I'm going to try to keep myself from going any further on that. And I also, I was really surprised. So Pride was 2 weekends ago, not this past weekend, the weekend before. The mayor surprised me with a proclamation recognizing my 25 years of supporting the LGBT community here locally. And it was Michael Goodnow Day in the city of Bremerton. So I drove home as fast as I could and didn't get a ticket. Okay, so no. And actually the other thing that happened was that Senator Emily Randall read comments to the crowd, and this is all a surprise to me, that Representative Derek Kilmer made on the House floor, recognizing my 25 years of LGBT work here in the community. Anyways, Pride was off the chart and it was great. And we're looking for ways to bring some of it downtown next year. It was mentioned earlier that the West Sound Film Festival is this weekend. There's a lot going down this weekend. Are you covering most of it? Okay, so but because I'm connected to the film festival, I'll be around the Roxy this weekend, and I'm also volunteering for the wine festival on Saturday morning. All right, I just you know, I'm actually happy with the result that we have tonight, but I'm really disappointed in the process and how it looked. And maybe you folks aren't seeing what I saw, but I hope as a council we can do better and we can be more transparent in the future. So I'm really disappointed. So thank you.
And next up, we have District 6, Councilmember Anna Mockler.
Thanks, Council President. I usually have a couple of slides, not so much tonight. Okay. So I do these monthly town halls at 100 Oyster Bay Avenue, thanks to Public Works. There you go. Every second Monday, 4 to 6 p.m. Pick up a nice flyer. It's just like a slide, but two-dimensional. Couple of things from District 6. I've been doorbelling, you know, advertising that I have these monthly town halls over in Bay Vista, and it's just been really remarkable to walk around there and see, hey, look. Look, boss, a flyer. Thank you. Thanks. It's just been really remarkable to like walk from blocks where all the trees are dead to blocks where all the trees are alive, and to just in these hot days just feel the difference. So trees have acquired a lot of primacy with me this month. The other thing that's happening is kind of sad. In fact, it's unadulteratedly sad. At 15th and Lafayette before the pandemic, we had Hales Ales, and it was a center, and we had the high-lows, and it was open all the time, and you could always have access to tie-dye. So if you had a sudden like Tuesday need for a tie-dyed onesie, you could go, you could get it. And green eggs and ham. Anyhow, so Heidi and Lowell went for a vacation. And they just went, this is pretty nice. They had been down to just weekends, and they're going to be closing later this month. So that's pretty sad. That's it, you know, sad thing happening in District 6. I'm going to be brief tonight, which those who are just meeting me will be like, oh my gosh. I had a sharp disagreement upstairs in the briefing, like a philosophical disagreement. And I was really happy about it in a way, because this is a pretty great body to be a part of, where people take stands on principle and disagree on principle and use civil discourse with each other on principle. So, you know, I've done a lot of love letters to my district. It's kind of a, you know, little love letter to you guys. That's it. Have a wonderful time. Stay hydrated.
Next district is up. Oh, go ahead.
1 second. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
District 7, Councilmember Eric Younger.
I don't know if I want to extend this council session much longer. I got to fly to New York City in the morning, and not looking forward to getting up at 3 a.m. But on a serious note, I want to welcome Dr. Crawford, our new Bremerton School District Superintendent. And one of my observations, the gentleman stayed here the whole council meeting. That you didn't get the memo, you don't have to do that. But it goes to show that, in my opinion, he means what he says. He sticks through it. And so, hey, you check the box for me. Good job. Just Yeah, no one stays for the whole meeting, so just. Well, we have other people, but they had vested interests and all that. Just usually when the mayor's report, off you go, but good for you. And then, but thank you for staying. All right. The other two observations based on my council members, since we're trying to kind of in a good mood right now. First of all, I'm happy with the vote, by the way. I know I have some constituents that wanted me to vote for the 12-8, but you know, it's all good. We're gonna get to 12-8, hopefully. So the other observation, pickleball, be careful. I don't know if you've been reading about pickleball and the noise that may come back to bite us, Jeff. That read up on that if you haven't. Google it, and if you live near it, that whacking noise. It supposedly it's like it can be just as bad as being next to like a gun club or whatever. The constant noise. You just read the articles. There's people that are complaining, so that'll be an interesting one to see how that develops, and hopefully it doesn't develop. Hopefully that's. And the last observation, just kind of a fun one, is what is up with this cornhole thing? I mean, we had this when I was a kid, and now it's caught on. Really, cornhole? There's championships and all that. Really? Okay, I don't want to offend people that are in. I'm not running again for District 7. I guess it don't matter. But the cornhole, really? Okay. And that concludes my report.
Oh, what a civic group we are. All right. Well, let me start. I'll try and get this brief. Again, thanks, Dr. Crawford. You're going to come back every time because you're going to be expecting the same level of praise, but you know, this is it. No, that's right. No, I want to actually echo all of your comments, and Councilmember Dennehy. It is really heartening to see. I got to meet with Dr. Lavelle when he was in office, and you know, he had a real breadth of experience and knowledge, and I'm seeing that in you several fold, and really a drive to do things newer and better. And I think there's some really great collaboration brewing between the city and the school district and our library and our nonprofits, and I sense great things for Bremerton coming along. And yeah, going back to the community, gosh, hearing people speak up. I wish I had such clarity on how to solve the really difficult issue of homelessness and poverty that I feel I have on this bridge. And so I just appreciate the community for continuing to speak up, for putting ideas on the table as we keep discussing this really difficult issue and working as a city on it. And I really do appreciate my fellow council members who have knowledge and experience in that area that I do not. So really, thank you all. I just got a few slides before I do. As far as all the events downtown, I think Director Hale of DBA summed up the craziness that is this coming weekend between 5 or 6 different downtown events and festivals. So just great to see that all going on. I'm going to try and hit as many as I can. I got invited to a neighborhood barbecue last second, and I told him, I was like, I think I can come for about an hour in between 2 things, and then skedaddle. Last slides is actually just a big thank you to Public Works. This is a picture I took maybe close to a week ago now on the 11th Perry project. This is a really big one. Again, when I went door knocking, potholes on Perry was one of the top comments I got in Manette, supporting the downtown business area on 11th Street. It's a large project, and it's going to be so amazing when it's done. Kudos to Public Works for coming to many MBA meetings. The Business Association had input on how this process would unfold. They recommended do one side of the street so that we have the other open for parking and traffic, and then do the other side. Public Works presented multiple options, and so appreciative of that. And it's coming together. It's a temporary pain. I know to the businesses there and peak shopping season, which also coincides when we can do construction when it's not raining and cold. But this is going to come out so nice in the end, that it's going really smoothly from what I've seen. I know a few pains, but this is going to be so great in the end. Next project. This is a really bad picture I took, but it was the other thing I got going down the road the other day. This is Washington and 11th, as the mayor mentioned. And I was just excited to see that the trucks out there and things starting. Another great project where Public Works worked with local residents to adjust the design, take into account their needs for parking and housing access in a really tricky sloped area with two roads that diverge. So it's great to see this happening on the other side of the bridge. Once they're both done, we'll have both sides of the Manette Bridge all pretty inaccessible. And then next slide. Oh yeah, I attended this today with the mayor. Speaking of big projects, and you can go to the next slide as well. This was a great summit hosted by Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, KEDA, on the Navy. And so we had Captain Hale speak along with several other people. I know a lot of city staff were there as well about their, multi-billion-dollar dry dock renovation. And it really was tapping into the fact that all this federal money coming into the shipyard should have a great economic benefit for Bremerton in terms of local businesses and contractors and available jobs. So great to get a briefing on this. And finally, I'll echo Councilmember Fry said on this final slide or final two. What a great joint district meeting we had on multimodal transportation. We just decided to kind of print out all the different diagrams from the different multimodal projects around town. Really fortunate to have Director Nucky be able to come out and show everybody all the great construction projects going on across Bremerton. I spoke with a couple candidates for council in a different city, and I was walking them through, the knowledge I had, and they had some questions about what projects are going on in their city. And I said, oh, let's go to your city website. Let's go to your public works website. I bet they got all listed out. And they didn't. There was no accessible information. So I'm really proud of our public works website where you can basically Google Bremerton projects, and there is a listing of all the ongoing projects. There's a construction map for the year. You can click on the links to each project and get a description, get diagrams and updates. I took it for granted that we had that and other cities didn't. So major kudos on that. And the final slide is just a couple of us at the meeting. Yeah, got to have a selfie, but good attendance as part of Bridge in Bremerton. That's it for me. Thank you all so much, everybody, for sticking around. And I'll announce the next study session will be held in the 6th floor council conference room next Wednesday, August 9th, beginning at 5 p.m. with a remote option available by Zoom. This concludes tonight's regular council business. Meeting is adjourned.